We're ready to begin. I think Mrs. Oakes will join us soon. So I'd like to welcome everyone to the meeting of the Canyons Board of Education, and we'll begin with our study session items. And anyway, I'd like to welcome you all. We are meeting at the district offices located 9361 South, 300 East in Sandy, Utah, and today is October 20th, 2020. So thank you for those that are joining us, and I will also announce that Mont Millerberg and Amber Schill are joining us electronically this evening. Okay, so our first item for the study session is a report or an update from the Long Range Planning Committee. And we will turn the time over to Mr. Leon Wilcox, Business Administrator.
Thank you, President Tingy. Just to give the board a brief update of what we've been doing as a long-range planning committee. We've had a few meetings over the spring and the summer, and even once school started, we have one or two. We've accomplished quite a bit. You know, as the long-range planning, it's our goal, it's our vision to bring items to you that could impact the district in enrollments or growth or other areas down the line, and we want to try to get out in front of those the best we can. So we've had some meetings. We've also had to postpone or cancel other meetings because we're just dealing with so many issues at hand with the opening schools and the COVID pandemic. So there is one issue that that we feel like is important enough we want to bring to you now, and we can also give you an update of some of the other things we've been looking at and we'll continue to look at. If you want to give us any feedback on that, that's our last slide. But the one thing we wanted to talk about is some growth in Midville, and it's the Jordan Bluffs. Oh, sorry. It's the, oops, there it is. The on button, there we go. Yeah, there we go. It's the Jordan Bluffs development out it's in West Midville. And so, and just so the board knows and the public knows, the board's represented by President Tingy, Chad Iverson, and also Mont Millerberg represent the board members on the committee. And then Dr. Robbins, Dr. Dowdle, myself, Floyd also attend those meetings as well. So we've been talking about this development out in West Midville. We have two options to bring to you. They're not dramatically different, but there is some difference between the two options. You know, we really don't necessarily have a favorite, but we want to bring in both and let you just, you know, give you a chance to think about it. And if there's anything we're possibly missing or want to give us some input, we'd appreciate that. But the first off, we just want to show you the four schools, elementary schools, and we're just going to talk elementary boundaries during this, but the four elementary schools in the Midville area, and you can see that's Midville, Copperview, East Midville, and Mid-Valley. You can see their October 1 enrollments, the building capacity, which is, you know, the open enrollment capacity is 40 less students, and then what they're filled to as of capacity as of right now, okay, based on the October 1 counts. And this includes all students there, because we figure eventually, most students will eventually come back, so we included the in-person, online, and parent-led. So any student registered at at one of those four schools there. Now, this is the four boundaries of the schools there. So and if it's okay, I'll point up there to you guys so you can see it maybe better. So the green, the light green, is the current Midville elementary boundaries. Again, this is the current boundaries as they are right now today. This orangish color is East Midville. This color here, and I'm not going to say what color that could be. Yellow? I don't know. Mustard, there we go, Mustard is Mid-Valley. And this purplish down here is Carperview, okay? Now, the area we're talking about is the Jordan Bluffs development right here. So those of you in Mont would know this. For years, the Jordan Bluffs was home to the Sharon Steel Mill. That closed down in 1971. It stood there, I believe, for about 80 years as a mill plant. Then they spent about 15 years remediating it. And it sat vacant for a while longer until it was developable. And then they've started to develop that. So it's about 265 acres in that blue piece right there. And they have started, if you've been out that way, they have started quite a bit there. They've done quite a bit already. And I just drove out there during lunch, and they're working on this west side here by the river. Here's an aerial view, maybe gives it a little bit better view. Just to orient ourselves a little bit better, of course, the big I-15 right there in the middle. Then you have Midvale Elementary and Middle School over here. Carperview right here. State Street would be going along there. Then you have the Bluffs development here. So this is the piece that they've been developing, this chunk of it right there. Over here, just orient yourself to going down, see the little corner there would be Gardner Village, and then the river bottom, which is the boundary of the district, flowing along right there, okay? So that gives you an overall view of where we're looking at here. So again, it's mainly this piece, and we're going to talk about between Midvale and Carperview, okay? Those are the main things, but Mid-Valley and East Midvale will also be pulled into the discussion here. And I also want to point out this street right here, because this is involved one of our options. This is called Ivy Lane. It somewhat splits the development. It goes all the way, you can't really see it, but it goes all the way up here, then right down the middle, and it will eventually continue down into this part here as well, okay? Once it's fully developed out. So right now we're looking at, it's still going to be about 4 to 5 years built out to get all this developed. And right now, as of October 1, we had 40 students who lived in this area right here who attend Midvale Elementary. But we think once it's built out, it could be in that 150 to 200 K-5 students. And so we have the two options to look at that. We think it could be closer to I think it's going to be closer to the 150 enrollments, but we want to make sure we cover our basis there. So we have two options to bring to you to discuss here about how we can accommodate that growth into Mid-Valley, into Midvale and Carperview, with also looking at East Midvale and Mid-Valley. So we have one option here, and that is option what we're going to call option 1. And that's saying, I'm going to go back here, we're going to say this whole area of the Bluffs would go to Midvale Elementary, which is the current boundaries right now. And again, that would be roughly that 150 students once it's built out. But then to accommodate that growth, we would take this section here that is built out, and I put the streets there. It's south of it's west of I-15 and south of Wasatch Boulevard right there. So this section here, and there's about 110 students there right now, that would go into Carperview, okay? So we'd put those into Carperview, then we'd take, which is in the current boundaries of Carperview, which is, I'm gonna go back to this first map here. We call it this little cone shape here. So this is east of State Street. State Street running right down the middle there. We'll take that chunk there, and we would boundary that into Mid-Valley. There's 33 students. I had it on the other slide, I believe it was 33 students. There's 120, let me go back here. There's 125 students who live there. However, only 33, even though it's in the Carperview boundaries, attend Carperview. A few attend Mid-Valley right now, but most attend East Sandy Sandy, and also Altaview for the DLI program. Some go up to Peruvian Park, and a few even into Oakdale. And then the last part of it is we would take this little chunk here. Sorry, I'm going back and forth. But this little chunk here would go into, it's in East Midville, that we'd put that into Midville Elementary. So that's this little piece here, okay? So again, this piece here west of I-15 and south of 7th West and east of 7th West, so 7th West is right here. All of that's going into Carperview. This chunk here going into Mid-Valley. This little piece here coming over to Midville, then all of this Jordan Bluffs development would stay in Midville. So that's our option one. And you can see the enrollment projections there. I'm using, we said 150 to 200. I'm using 175, just beating there in the middle. And you can see the gain and loss of the boundary. So that should equal out, right, as the current students that we have. And then we were looking at the possible growth, we already have 40 students there, so we're going to add 135. And then you look at the permit option, which is always an issue that we deal with in looking at boundaries, how many people could permit. But right now we have 92 permitting out of Carperview near those schools. So we take that into account. That's the new projected enrollment and the capacity. So we fill up Midville Elementary under that scenario. I would also caution to say, as we're in election season right now, there's all these polls out there, as you know. They always have that, give or take 3 to 5%. I would add that same thing, projections here, 3 to 5% either way on these, okay? Based on family size and birth rates and development and things of that nature. So, but that's what we're looking at on that option one there. We do hope that these 92 students that are in Copperview's boundaries but permit to other schools, we're hoping that over time, most of them will, and we'd like this to happen, will eventually go to Mid-Valley. They have the new building and the new DLI program. It will take some time over years to do that, as new families go into that area, but we do hope that will happen there. So that's our option one. We're going to go on to option two, and the bottom three things stay exactly the same. We're not going to make any changes from them. So the same things there. However, we would look at one thing, and that is a split here in the Bluffs. And it's going right down that Ivy Lane, okay? Again, I'm going to go right back, whoops. Go right back to this aerial view. Again, Ivy Lane, going right through there, okay? So we take the south half, our proposal would be the south half. Nothing's been developed there yet, okay? But we know in the next 4 or 5 years it will. This south half would go into Carperview. This north half would continue to go to Midvale. I should point out in this section right here of the Bluffs, Zions Bank is building a new 400,000 square foot data center. You may have seen that. They're constructing that now. That's 400,000 square feet. It's about the size of one of our high schools. So, and then the house will have more commercial development down in this area as well. But, so what you can see the subtle difference here is this purple area gets a little bit bigger. And because half of these kids we're proposing could go to Carperview. Again, this area stays somewhat the same for Midville. We will still have this little chunk here, these 17 kids going to Midville. This group here still shifting over to Mid-Valley. Those, and also all this current development that's, where kids currently live would also go to Carperview. So those are still the same as both in option 1 and 2. You look at the possible projections, again, I would add 3 to 5% either way on this. We get Midville down a little bit about 90% of capacity, but we start filling up Carperview too. So we're going to add more to that. The East Mid-Vale and Mid-Valleys would still stay the same. So again, it's to us, it's as a committee, it still comes down to Mid-Vale and Carperview are the two main players in this potential shift here, okay? So those are the two options that we have. We'd look at, if the board wanted us to look at other options, we'd be certainly happy to do that. And let you know, we did look at pocket busing. We did not like that option. We don't do that in any parts of Canyon School District right now. We bus an area across a couple school boundaries into another school. So we didn't like that. But so these are possibly the next steps. At the November 10th meeting, we could select an option, either one or two, or if you wanted us to look at other ones, we'd take that, we could go start presenting that to the public. And then if you remember how we did it with the Edgemont-Bellevue combination of those two schools, you know, there's a process that you have to follow. You have to, basically, once you make that proposal, you have to wait 120 days to adopt it. So you have to give, that way you have to make sure parents and staff and everybody is notified of that. So once we did that, we would notify the parents of all 4 schools. We'd hold community meetings the best we can. Of course, in this COVID environment, that presents a challenge. But we could look at the Mid-Vale Middle Auditorium, and we'd have to spread people out and have to do it over a couple nights. Or we could go to each school. Then, as I said, we'd have to wait the 120 days. This change would not be effective next school year, but the school year following. So that'd be the 2022, August of 2022 is when we look at that. And also, I think that we brought up is the busing needs for these students down here that currently reside right in here in this is Wasatch. All this south of that would go into Carperview under either proposal 1 or 2, but we wouldn't want to look at busing these students. They would have to walk under I-15 up Wasatch, then down Monroe here. That's quite a walk. It is actually not the 1.5 miles, but under the circumstances, I think it's our recommendation that we try to bus those students. So with that, just before we go, these are some other items that we've been talking about before we move on to those. Is there any questions that anybody has? Mont's been heavily involved in our discussions as we met with some of the principals and whatnot. So I don't know if Mont, if you had anything else you wanted to.
Yeah, Leon, there's just there are a couple of concerns that we talked about in our long range planning meeting, but I think the rest of the board may want to be aware of those. Couple of the concerns I have, and as I told Leon earlier, I have a whole bunch of concerns, but I don't have a whole lot of solutions, which makes it kind of hard. But if we look at the area that is east of 700 West.
So I'm going to go back and pull that up for everybody here, Mont. Okay. So they're looking at it here.
And south of Wasatch or 80th South.
Yeah, so it's this area here.
That I can't see where you're pointing, but I'll trust you.
Yeah, it's on this west side of I-15.
Okay.
South of Wasatch, east of 7th West. So that 110 students right there. Yeah.
Yeah. That is currently in Mid-Vale's boundaries. It is a fairly challenged, socioeconomically challenged area. And whether that stays at Mid-Vale or whether it goes to Carperview, I think that there's a high correlation between being socioeconomically challenged and how the kids perform on testing. And so I think that you can take that area and pretty much count on that not increasing the test scores at whatever school those kids go to. I think that it makes it more and more difficult thinking that Mid-Vale just came out of turnaround. Moving those kids to Carperview would be a big boost for Mid-Vale, but I see that as a real problem for Copperview, who's been one of our focus schools for quite a while. And I'm afraid that all we would accomplish by moving those kids to Copperview is move Copperview then down to the turnaround status or getting real close to it. So that's a concern. Like I said, that's a concern. I don't have a solution. The other thing that we talked about for that same area that is currently walking to Midvale, they go over to 80th South or Wasatch and up Wasatch under the freeway, and in the back door there, so to speak, for where the middle school and the elementary schools are, and they walk to school. If they go to Copperview, and this is probably part of the busing program, is if they were to walk, they would walk right past a brand new, relatively new elementary school to go to one of our older schools. And I think that would be kind of a hard sell for the parents. And my third concern, which is kind of unrelated, but still part of it, is we have Mid-Valley brand new, as in like 45 days old school, that is sitting at less than 60% of its capacity. And so while we've got the other schools, Midvale especially at close to capacity, and the others in the 80s, and East Midvale in the upper 80s, close to 90. And so I don't know that we've balanced our population very well. Yeah. So like I said, I don't have answers to the problems. I just identify problems. Leon's the answer man.
To start with your last point first there, Mont, is on the Mid-Valley, this is what we're hoping for. And as I said earlier, we're hoping these 80 or so students that are in the Copperview boundaries, and we don't have a map here, but it's an aerial view, but it sees right here. We hope that these kids will eventually shift over here to Mid-Valley. There's 92 there now who permit to other schools. Only 8 go to Mid-Valley. We'll open these 84-ish, and again, give or take some numbers there. We'll eventually all go there. It's going to take some time with the new DLI program and the new building. Of course, we're in an odd, different year. We all know that with the pandemic, but we hope we can get some these students eventually going there. That would bring it up into the 70 range. It's still under capacity, but we're also hoping maybe we draw some from East Midvale, maybe some of these other areas. Again, it's a permit issue into Mid-Valley over time. But that is an issue. We do hope to fill up, or just, at least fill up, the DLI, all the cohorts. Again, we're only in first grade there. Time you get up to 5th grade, more classrooms and more kids, but we do hope to fill that up over time. But Monty is right, that is a concern we have. And
so Leon? Yeah. If you fast forward the video 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, what would you project the capacity of Mid-Valley to be using those parameters?
I would say 5 years, I think would get well into the 70s. Again, it just depends on how robust, how big of a draw the school is. I think these 84 kids will go there. It's relatively close. Probably not within busing range, but still not necessarily far. But there's quite a few homes there if you're familiar with that area. The tracks line's right here, but there's lots of residential homes right in that area. So I would think, I'd hope, and drawings from seeing the DLI program there grow like it has at other schools, I would like to see us, hopefully in 5 years, we're at these 84, and then which would get us into the 70 range, and others would get us into the 80 range, again, drawing into that DLI program, which seems to be a draw at the other 8 or 9 DLI programs throughout the district. So That's what I would hope in 5 years, we're at 80%.
What would you project in 10?
Probably the same. Once you get all depends on growth, but I think we could easily be at 80+% in 5. But from there on out, I'm not sure. I have to say that Rick's here, and maybe you've seen this month, but over the weekend they put in all the sod there at Mid Valley and it looks fantastic now. So it's a beautiful school, beautiful building.
Yeah, I left home a little over a week ago, and it was going in then, and it looks really good.
Yeah, I drove by it today, and looks really good. They got the playground going, so they're just finishing up a few what we call punch list items, and then we're done. But it's a beautiful building. We're very functional. We just love that design of that school.
Very, very well thought out, and it's a beautiful school. Great addition to the neighborhood.
Absolutely. Chad, did you have a question?
Yes.
No, you just talk in your microphone.
Okay. So a couple of questions that I probably should have asked weeks ago when we were talking about this in our committee meeting. Does this have any impact on middle school boundaries for these kids, or do they all go ahead?
The answer is no. They would all go to, we actually kind of like this in a way because East Midvale, and Copperview all go into Midvale Elementary. We like this chunk going over to Mid Valley because this Mid Valley goes into Union. So it would help increase the capacity at Union long term. So I think in the middle school, this plan, which is either plan A or B, 1 or 2, benefits the middle schools long term.
So sorry, maybe I should have been more specific in my question. It sounds like from what you said, if we move some kids from the mustard.
From the mustard here, yeah.
Are we changing their feeder system because they were in one?
That's probably why they don't, very few, they're in the mustard now. Very few actually tend the purple Copperview. And I think it's probably because of the feeder system right now. I think this improves the feeder system, to be honest with you. This way puts them all right here into Mid Valley. Right up here is Union, right on 7th East, which is going to be new. Actually, Union right here on 80th South. So just come up 80th South is right here will be the new Union. So I think it improves the middle school boundaries. Of course, all these go into Hillcrest too. So,
but those students there currently they're boundaried. Those students there are currently boundaried for Midvale Middle?
yeah. Well, no, I think they're probably, Floyd, would you know?
State Street's your dividing line between Midvale and Union.
The ice cream cone, they're going. Yes, but middle school, they go to, even right here, this area here is still Midvale?
I believe so.
Okay.
So we would be changing their elementary boundary
Yeah.
and their middle school
Okay, yeah,
boundary,
yeah.
but not their high school.
Not their
boundary.
high school boundary. I do like
Chad?
Go
Chad,
ahead.
The Princeton Avenue, which if you see the through street that's just north of Copperview Elementary, Princeton Avenue is a dividing line now between Jordan and Hillcrest west of State Street. So those kids that are in that pink area that are boundary for Copperview, that are south of Princeton, they are boundary for Jordan currently.
Oh,
You guys made that change the same time you didn't split the neighborhood in the Chevy Chase area, but you split the neighborhood in Midvale. Go figure.
And okay, I think I get it.
That was one meeting I attended when I was off the board.
Yes. So there's some kid, but no kids would have their high school boundaries changed. Some kids would have their their middle school
Yeah.
boundaries changed, but no kids would have high school.
I don't want to guarantee that. We may have to look at that.
So is it actual a boundary change or is it the boundary stays the same?
Boundary stays the same.
Because the elementary school might have a split, right? They might split between the
Yeah.
two middle schools.
Yeah, that's a good, I guess.
Yeah, I guess
Good
that's,
clarification. It would be, do we mess up the feeder system
Mhm.
for these kids?
Yeah. I would probably, as we talk, I would probably look at this chunk here. Again, there's 130-ish kids. I would look at feedering them into Union long-term. I think that improves the feeder system myself.
But also those kids also have a choice, right? I mean, they
Yeah.
could go to either middle school they wanted
Yeah,
to.
they could go to Midvale's right here. Union will be right here. Basically on the same north-south axis, just east-west is changing. Yeah, see, yeah, as we said, only 30, there's 100, what did we say, 125, but only 33 go to Carperview right now. And that's part of the problem we see. We hope all these eventually will go to Mid-Valley would be our hope. And I think we ought to look at changing that boundary for Union because Union will have that capacity to take them long-term. I think that's a really good point.
So we have a
So
couple-
can I just ask, Floyd, do you mind looking that up for us now, what the current middle school boundaries are for that neighborhood?
Yeah.
For the area that
This
is
here.
moving from Copperview to Mid-Valley?
Yeah, this ice cream. Why don't, because again, we have to bring this back to you on the 10th. We'll certainly have all that information for you.
Then just a couple other questions. So I'd like us to also think about two other questions. What happens if we do nothing? There's option A, option one, and option two. Is there a viable option to do nothing? And then my last point would be, Leon, you're concerned about Mid-Valley, the enrollment numbers being so low. Do we get, if we're going to make some boundary changes, do we, sorry, I don't know if I should talk with this on or off, but
It's not easy, is it?
it's not.
It's, I know,
If we're going to make some boundary changes, do we rip the Band-Aid off, so to speak, and do we move the boundary from the Mid-Valley boundary further, sorry, the Mid-Valley boundary further? So we, at least from a boundary perspective, we boundary less kids in Mid-Valley where the enrollment constraint is, and boundary more kids in Mid-Valley. That doesn't necessarily mean for sure that they're actually going to go to that school, but I don't know, some other things to think about as a board.
Yeah, so you point to question one, and we could always wait a little while and, see where the growth is. And, growth is always hard to determine because the birth rate in the state of Utah is decreasing, right? I think we're under a replacement value now in the state. This is the current today. Again, 40 students are there, assuming we got another 100. So we had 140 students total. You put this up to close to 800, and that really takes that above that 100% capacity. We've had it higher. We've had up to 770 students there. It fills it up. It's been in a turnaround status, as Mont has said. So that's the issue there. These really would not change if you didn't do anything. And then to point number two, and it's something we can easily look at, is, you always look for natural divides. on boundaries, right? Some of the biggest ones we have is I-15, which, is now 10 lanes. It's only a matter of time before it's 30 lanes wide, right? But also State Street is a pretty natural divide. And that's, then to Chad's point, and something that we have looked at a little bit, is where do you draw the line there to push more kids into Mid-Valley? But they would have to cross State Street, which again, kind of that natural divide barrier there. But something that we could look at more.
Okay.
One of the things that we looked at as well is the area around those schools. Those neighborhoods are so close to the school, whether you're looking at Copperview or you're looking at Midvale. So you start, and as Leon mentioned, those boundaries, you're dividing either, the freeway or the tracks or whatever those boundary areas are difficult, because if you start moving kids away from the school, you're actually moving them away from a walking area, which is close to the school, into an area where now they're going to be bused to the new school too. And so you're really moving them away from their community into those schools, which is very difficult to do. And it was difficult for me to think that I would justify moving those kids away from those communities into another jurisdiction, really. Not just another school, but another community. So that was a concern.
Thank you. Mr. Wrigley?
Just a couple of questions. Go to aerial view number 2, I guess. Option 2. So when we go out that direction, the far east, west side,
Mhm.
do we know, is that commercial or is that going to be housing?
So right out here, I'm going to go back to this view here again. This is the line, this Ivy Road. Most of this down here will be residential.
Okay.
They will have, they're going to put in some type of soccer complex here. Kind of I think a practice field for RSL. And then there'll be some single homes here. These will be mainly apartments and townhomes, which is right here, which is what they've built right in here. That it's dirt there now, but these are actually really built up apartments. This is a Google map, but it hasn't been updated for quite some time. So going down in this area will be more apartments / townhomes. You will have some commercial in here. They're also going to have a kind of a park walking route / park along the river too, to open up some green space.
So I asked that
They have it
question.
planned out pretty nice. It's going to be.
Yeah,
nice.
I wonder about that, because on option 2, if we go straight across, we're pretty much splitting the
Yeah.
higher economic area between 2 different schools rather than all going to one. So though they get an area that's socially economically deprived in some area, they are
That
getting
was-
some offset rather than all that area going up to
That's
Midville.
pretty much the hammer on the head. That's one of the.
Yeah, I mean, it gives
reasons
it,
we're bringing
it does split a little bit in coming to there. I suspect at some point Copperview is going to probably be rebuilt. It's probably on the list within the next 30 years or so. The other question is have we looked in this area as far as age out, the standard age of individuals or families in that area, to find out, because they're going to be turned around over the next several years. If we've got people in their 80s and 70s in some of these areas, they're going to be replacing with young families. And
One of the things.
give us some kind of idea what the family's going to look in 5 or 10 years, maybe.
One of the things about some of these areas is it's one of the more affordable places in the district right now. We have some, home prices are actually gone up the highest percentage in the Midville area of the 4 communities. But that is because of the demand, and that's, they're a little bit more affordable in that, but they do get sold, and they have been increasing quite rapidly. To answer the demographics, it's probably
Yeah,
the
it'd be
same as
interesting,
all.
especially on Copperview, to find out. I
It's
know
probably all
Mid-Valley,
the
what's going to happen in Mid-Valley, probably the same thing did to Altaview and Light City, is that when we put that school in there, it really started having the turnover of
Yeah.
kids come in and new families.
Yeah.
So you'll probably start seeing the more numbers of kids coming back in there with the brand new school put into there. But I just was wondering if we have the same issue on Copperview because of age out, we gotta have them pretty tight and we start aging them out. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's just seems like two splits that new area a little bit more than one would, where one would have everybody go up to. And
Yeah,
then
yeah,
have-
and that was our exact thinking there. is
So it does give a
split
little
the
more.
Bluffs, and you would split it before it got developed, right? Nobody's there now,
Yeah,
but as they moved in, they, they would know that, hey, Carper View is my boundary
so
school.
that could help the test scores in both schools then versus just one, and then, we
I'll
may
say this,
lower it.
we got some awesome teachers at both schools. We got fantastic
Yeah.
principals at both schools.
yeah,
We're gonna,
that's
these,
true. I think we're.
as
probably
I
off
talked with
everyone.
both principals, they really didn't really care, but said, hey, we'll take the kids that come to us and we're gonna do the best we can with
No,
whoever
I- I'm-
comes. Yeah.
Whatever school.
And that's the
we'll
attitude,
do
you know,
whatever needs
that's-
to be done by that area.
Yeah,
but this is
they're
wonderful. So-
fantastic
Okay, well, thank
at
you.
both schools there.
Okay, Mrs. Arnold.
So looking at, looking at option 1 and option 2. Option 1 just increases Midvale's population. It's not really helping us, right? As far as going into the school. And option 2, it declines by about 30. So option 1, it goes up about what, 40 students? We hope that that's all it goes up. But then option 2, it goes down by about the same amount of numbers.
Yeah.
I guess my question is why are we changing boundaries just to have a school go up in numbers versus bring them down, which option 2 does bring them down because some of them go to Copperview, sorry. So
I think it's.
to what purpose do we
I
want
think it's
option
the
1?
options of trying to balance them out the best we can. We know if we do nothing, Midvale's probably going to get very crowded. If we do some, whatever that option is to try to balance out the enrollments between them all. Ideally, every time we do enrollments, we'd always love to just pick up the building and move it 5 blocks one way,
Right.
right? You
So
can't.
what
do-
you're saying is in
Yeah.
option 1, if we do nothing, then this 110 will just stay there and we'll be up to 800.
Yeah.
So we need to do something to
Mhm.
reduce it. Whereas if you do option 2,
Option 2 puts more pressure
Put
into
more
Carper View.
students in Copperview.
It fills up Carper View
Yeah.
to near capacity. Again, add 3 to 5% either way.
Yeah, I like the way option 2 divides up what's going on, and I really do believe the administration can deal with anything that comes their way, so. Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? So just, oh, yes, go ahead, Mr. Iverson.
Sorry, one more question. Back to Midvale, do we know the number of students that are permitting into Midvale or are there on special programs that aren't neighborhood
Oh,
boundary
yeah.
students?
We could, why don't we get that for you? We have it. I
Okay.
don't have it off the top of my head though. I don't know if, yeah. But we have to come back on the 10th. We're going to bring updates to the middle school boundaries. We'll give permits to all these schools. Why don't we get that, so we have that?
Thank you.
Good question.
I have one more too.
Yes, Mrs. Arnold.
Midvale's where we started the program, where we're doing bilingual
Yeah.
K through, aren't
The
we
K
up
through
to 3
5, the
now?
dual split.
The dual split up to third grade
K's
now,
here,
right?
he,
Am I
yeah.
not correct?
Yeah, we're doing all
So-
5 grades, right? All 5. yeah.
We're up to 5 now?
Yeah.
I'm sorry how I missed those last 2, but I'm really thankful that we're doing that. I think it's amazing that we've been able to do that there. Can we continue that or can we continue that to Copperview if we find that the
I
population
think we have to look at that at Carper View.
is there to be able to do that?
I think we have to continue it at Midvale, and I think we have to look at that at Carper View.
Because
we
I
may have to
think,
look
I
at
think
more
that's
supports
the
into
answer to a lot of
Carper View, yeah.
children's needs that
Yeah.
is going on.
That's been
Okay,
a
thank you.
fantastic program that the board approved there.
Okay,
Before I go, and I know our time's short, we'll bring all this back at the next meeting if that's okay. And just to give you an idea of some things that the committee is looking at outside of this boundary here. Again, the potential future use of the Crescent View building. We need to maybe look at boundaries in the south part of the district for middle schools, okay? That'd be Draper Park, Indian Hills area. We've, Susan and Amanda's going to serve on the committee that appointed the Mountain Commission, the prison property, how that develops. We do have the property, and it was included on the bond of that new West Draper Elementary, the timeline. We haven't determined that. And another thing that I think that we feel is very important is something at CTEC, whether we look at relocating that or do a major improvement there. So those are all things that we're looking at long-term, but I don't know if you had a question, President Tingy, but I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, thank you. So, okay. Yes. Yes, please, Dr.
Just to let you
Stanford.
know, that area that we were talking about is actually Union Middle School's boundary area. So the cone, the ice cream cone area is currently Union, and it will stay Union. So that helps us clarify that. And the other question about permits with Midvale, if you don't mind, is that Midvale right now currently, the students who are living there are staying at Midvale, which is nice. The permits have actually decreased this year, but we think that may be a result of the COVID issue this year. So anyway, those two things, thanks.
So we do like that, going to Mid-Valley, again, a natural fit up into Union.
And that's the same option 1 and option 2.
That's option, both options, yeah.
Okay, great. Any other questions or requests for information that they could bring back to us on the 10th? And I'll just remind the board that on the 10th, we won't actually vote on a final option, but we will select one that would then be taken out to the community as part of the process that the legislature put in place for notifying the community on that. And that's the 120-day thing. So just kind of anticipating that the formal action would occur sometime in the spring. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Leon. Appreciate that. Okay. The next item in our study session is the USBA October Challenge. And we will turn the time over to our representative on the USBA Board of Directors, Mont Millerberg. Okay, Mont, I think you're still on mute.
Thank you. Now I am not on mute.
We can hear you.
Good. The October challenge is to read a book or an article as a board. I think being we're sitting on the 20th day of the month right now, reading a book may be a bit more of a challenge than at least I want to bite off. If you log on to usba.cc and then go to the the Power Up link that's on the USBA website, and when you get there, you can go to recommended readings. They have a list of things that they suggest as possible readings. As I've reviewed, not read, but reviewed some of these, there's an article called 8 Characteristics of an Effective School Board. It's, substantial. It's, I believe, about 25 pages long. But that would be one that I looked at, and as I reviewed it, I think our board could gain a lot by reading that and then discussing it. And I don't know, our last meeting asked for input from others, so if others have suggestions, my ears are certainly open. And this is not one that I say we have to do, it's just a suggestion. So if anybody else has suggestions, lay them out.
Any other thought, Mr. Wrigley?
Yeah, Dr. Robbins gave us a book he suggested there may be, and I talked with him before, there may be a chapter in that book that we could all read that would be specific, that we could have some discussion on or something, since we have a copy of it.
Do you have a recommendation for which chapter, Superintendent?
I think the suggested article that Mont is brought up is excellent as well. In Eric Schenninger's Digital Leadership, chapter 1, 2, and 3 are all focused on leadership and the digital landscape. And I think all three would be excellent if you so chose to do so. The chapter 1 is how the learning landscape has changed, and it's talking a lot about the fourth industrial revolution. Chapter 2 is a compelling case for change, essentially talking about moving forward with digital leadership. And then chapter 3 is on sustainable change. So it's talking more about the journey of a practitioner and the process of change over time in a digital landscape. So all three or one or any of those three would be great, in my opinion.
The reason I suggest that at some point, if we read this input chapter, it might be nice in a study session to sort of put that apart. You could tell us realistically how that may fit in with our district. And we can have a discussion about what your views are, how that may fit in with our district or something.
Other thoughts or ideas, suggestions?
I have a couple.
Mrs. Arnold.
So one is, how are we going to share this without having another board meeting? Or a discussion before the end of the month, because that's when it's due. So that's just one. 2 is, it needs to be less than, 25 pages. My life is very, very busy teaching and taking care of school right now. And I'm sorry, but my days are limited in hours for here and there. So it can't be too lengthy. But I'll do what I can do, and I'll do what I need to do for everybody. But those were the 2. I think I might have already read those 3 chapters because I started reading that book this summer. So I might have done that already. I just have to go back and see where my bookmark is.
Okay, Mont, so the question is,
Yeah,
the
I
challenge.
stand corrected, Nancy. It's 14 pages. I just looked it up.
Oh, the article?
Yeah.
So then the other question is the, to meet the challenge, is it just that we read it or that we have a discussion as a board?
I'm not exactly sure. I have a hard time finding their challenge on the USBA website. Maybe our future president can do something to make that happen to where those are actually published on the website. So I don't know exactly what it is. I believe that it's read that as a board. But I think it's kind of worthless to read it without having a discussion and see what we learn.
Okay.
I think reading a few chapters from a book would be great. And the thing I found, just like Clarine says, I've only got so many hours in my life available. If it's an audio book to where I can do that during my exercise time, things get done a lot easier. So if digital leadership is available as an audio book, I'm all over that.
Okay, so it sounds like, and I actually just looked up, the email we received, the challenge is to read an article/book from the recommended reading list. And you said the article was 14 pages? And we're not sure if the book is actually on the list, but I mean, we might just be being, you're on mute, Mont.
The good news is when I'm on mute, I can't interrupt you when you're speaking. It does not have to be something from their list. It just needs to be a leadership related book of our choosing. And they put the ones on their website simply as, if you're like I am without a lot of creativity, that you've got a place to at least start.
Okay, so how about chapter 1, 2, and 3 from the book? I'll just put it out there, and if people are good with that, then we'll do that. And if the discussing it as a board is not part of the official challenge, then we can look to complete that part of it when works out to schedule it in a future board meeting.
Okay.
So, oh, I just want to say, Mont, I'll work on getting that on the website. I will work on that. It's a very good idea. And I'm good with, I'm good with whatever we do.
You know, and I sit on that committee and I've mentioned it as well. And they're allegedly working on that. Nancy, if I could just overrun my assignment just a little bit.
Yes.
I know we're at the time we should be starting the next meeting already, but the reporting for the year 2020 for the Master Boards Award, the deadline is December 1. I went on the website today and looked, and they list every school district and then every member as far as the percent complete they are. I was quite appalled to find out I was at 12% complete, and I was leading the pack. I talked to Megan at USBA, and she said we've got a real problem with that. I believe those that have participated, and thanks to the members of the board, I think everybody has done that. We need to make sure that Leon and Rick are on board as well to submit that. But I believe most of us should be able to complete that with minimal effort going forward now. But we just need to make sure that we have those things completed by December 1.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for that reminder. Any other thoughts on this item?
I just had one, and I don't know if we can or can't do it because it would be a document, but if we did a Google Doc and each one of us just put like 3 things that they really liked out of the digital learning 1 chapter and 3 things out of digital 2 and now 3 things out of digital 3, if we're sharing a document and putting those 3 things we liked out of the book, does that make a meeting?
I think we could each make our own notes and then we ought to bring it to a meeting and have a discussion.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mont, for helping us with this and for the reminder about completing all of the pieces for that USBA MBA award or Power Up, whatever they're calling it now. So appreciate that. Okay, that concludes the items for our study session. And we will now just take a very brief minute to switch gears to our business meeting.
Nancy,
Yes. Ready to begin the business meeting of the Canyons Board of Education. We'd like to welcome all of you that have joined us this evening, October 20th, 2020. We are meeting at the district offices located at 9361 South, 300 East in Sandy, Utah. So our first item is to approve the agenda for the meeting today, October 20th, 2020. I will ask for a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda for October 20th, 2020 as so written.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any discussion to the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
I,
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes. Thank you. Okay, next we will be led in the Pledge of Allegiance by Susan Edwards, Public Engagement Coordinator. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We will now be pleased to hear some school highlights from Union Middle School Principal Kelly Cattioli.
Thank you. This is my 6th year at Union Middle School, and I recently received Union's yearly summary for the Safe Utah app. The data represent the tips that were reported by Union students and parents to the Safe Utah tip line. I was struck by the fact that our second most reported category was acts of kindness. I believe this data point reflects the overarching spirit of kindness and tolerance that exists at Union Middle. We are a diverse community with many different ethnic backgrounds, home languages, and economic resources. I personally love this about Union. Our differences bring a richness to our school culture and our daily interactions. Our school motto is every student, every classroom, every day. And I have a talented, dedicated staff that really care about our kids and work hard to help them succeed. Even with a fire last year and moving online in March because of COVID, our proficiency in reading increased by 5% for 7th graders and 3% for 8th graders when comparing the growth between the winter reading inventory last year and the fall inventory this year. Over the past 5 years, we have also worked to ensure that every student has access to a rich, challenging curriculum. Our minority students are strongly represented in our honors courses. In our English language arts honors classes, 26% of the students are from minority groups. In our math honors classes, 25% of the students are from diverse backgrounds. These students are on an academic pathway that will lead to success in advanced placement and international baccalaureate courses in high school. In addition, we are privileged to have an accommodated core class and an extended core class as part of Union Middle School. These exceptional students enrich our school as well. Our bragging rights come from a top-notch performing arts program, including strong theater, dance, choir, and instrumental music. Our performing arts teachers stage a large musical each year, and we have a competitive Shakespeare team. We also have an excellent Spanish dual language immersion program that takes top honors at the BYU Language Fair each year. Every one of our 8th grade students participates in History Fair, and we took state last year. Lastly, our students get leadership experience through our Student Ambassador Program and our National Junior Honor Society. The Union community truly is a wonderful place to live, work, and to go to school. Thank you.
Thank
Union
you.
fan.
Thank you, Principal. Will you please take back our appreciation to your faculty, staff, and students there at Union?
Thank you. Thank you, Nancy.
We
I
appreciate
will.
all you do and all that they do, and we're just happy to celebrate all the great things. Thanks for sharing
Thank
that
you
with
very
us.
much.
And just a comment, everything Kelly said is true.
It is. All right. Thank you. So we will now turn time over to Jeff Haney and Kirsten Stewart from our Communications Department for some recognitions.
We appreciate the time that the board grants us at every board meeting to present the fantastic things that the Canyons community is doing artistically, academically, and athletically. Now, in previous years, as we have mentioned, this board chambers would be packed with students, faculty, and staff who are being honored for their achievements. But as we also have said already today, this is a school year unlike any other. Now, we will move forward in recognizing those who have contributed so much to helping us build and maintain a world-class school district. Now, the people who do get recognized are presented with a letter from the board and a letter from the superintendent, as well as a Canyons District keychain. We send those out the week or so after we mention them during board meeting. So we have quite a list of students who are going to be recognized tonight. But before we recognize the students, I would like to give a shout out to the instructional leaders of our community. And those are our rock star principals. They lead by example, they innovate, they secure resources for their schools, they build trust with parents in the community, but mostly they are fierce champions of their students. They keep a focus on student achievement so that all students can reach their potential. And they did this even during a major health crisis. October is National Principals Month, so please join us in thanking our principals for all of their hard work and dedication on behalf of the children in the Canyon School District. If you haven't had a chance to look at it yet, please go to our website for a video that we've created to honor our principals for National Principals Month. So like we mentioned, this is a year unlike any other, but Canyons does continue to reach new heights. And our first honoree tonight has risen to the top. He's the first state champion of the year for Canyon School District. So congratulations to Corner Canyon High School golfer Kason Wright. He is the 2020 individual title holder in 6A boys golf. Now, the state champion won the medalist honors at the Utah High School Activities Association's recent boys golf tournament. And as a team, the Chargers finished third. And among those finishing in the top 10 was Jordan High School's Preston Cheney. So congratulations to those student athletes. Two other student athletes have achieved national recognition. Bailey Bruce from Brighton High School and Zachary Meyer from Corner Canyon High are among 3 lacrosse players chosen by U.S. Lacrosse to receive the 2020 Jackie Pitts and Bob Scott Awards for going above and beyond in the community and in the classroom. Now, this year, 65 honorees from around the country were chosen for this list. We've got 2 of them here in Canyon School District. They were recognized for their efforts on and off the field, and the selections are based on voting by coaches within geographic areas. So congratulations to the Bengals and the Chargers for these national recognitions with lacrosse, which will be exciting to watch this spring. Our next honorees have proven their mettle academically and athletically. A whopping 37 Canyons District students have been named to the Utah High School Activities Association's academic all-state list for fall sports. That's a huge number. So I would love to see that at the end of the year if we have even more than we did last year, which was a significant number. So congratulations to these students. In boys golf, Jacob Branca from Corner Canyon High School. In girls cross country, Abby DeGraff, Corner Canyon. Addison Murray, Corner Canyon. Abigail Gronke from Brighton. Anna Whitmore from Brighton. Annie Williams from Brighton. Magdalene Erickson from Hillcrest. Megan Lilliard from Hillcrest. In volleyball, Sydney Ambrose from Brighton. In girls soccer, Marin Granger, Corner Canyon. Paige Rasmussen from Corner Canyon. Reagan Wingett from Corner Canyon. Willow Collins from Corner Canyon. Leah Lowry from Alta. Amanda Fordham from Brighton. Blakely Rasmussen from Brighton. Haley Munson from Brighton. Haley Taylor from Brighton. Hallie Dunn from Brighton. In boys cross country, Benjamin Dastrup from Corner Canyon High School. Cade Crosby from Corner Canyon. Dayton Fowler from Corner Canyon. Jared Mehmet from Corner Canyon. John Askew from Corner Canyon. Mark Geilman from Corner Canyon. Samuel Bethards from Corner Canyon. Austin Reich from Alta. Ethan Christensen from Alta. James Bentley from Alta. Ethan Ambrose from Brighton. Nathan Burnett from Brighton. Anthony Davies from Hillcrest. John Baird from Hillcrest. Zachary Steed from Hillcrest. And in football, Colton Grimshaw from Corner Canyon High School. Cole Karchner from Jordan High School, and John Morzaleski from Jordan High School. Those are the student athletes that were named to the fall sports list of academic all-state. So congratulations to those students. Next up, all the world is a stage for these next honorees. The Shakespeare competition teams from Corner Canyon High School and Hillcrest High School, as well as some other high schools who did really well at the 44th Shakespeare competition. So we'll give a round of applause to both Hillcrest and Corner Canyon High Schools who won the sweepstakes awards in their divisions at this very prestigious competition for student actors. The Huskies took top awards they took the sweepstakes awards in their division, and they took top awards in monologues, duo trio scenes, and ensemble scenes. Hillcrest also won first place in the Tech Portfolios category and captured top prize in the Tech Olympics for the third year in a row. They also won a few other awards, placing in the top 3 in several other categories. The Chargers also won their sweepstakes and first place in monologues, duo trio scenes, and ensemble scenes, with several other finishes in the top 3. Now, 2 other Canyons District schools won awards of the competition as well. Jordan High School's choir won first place and second place in the minstrel category for large schools, and the Beat Digger Madrigals also won third place for large schools. Jordan High School students also took third place in the Tech Olympics, and Alta High student actors won second place in ensemble scenes in the schools division. Now, this national competition this year was held virtually. So if you want to take a look at all of the work of our student actors at our high schools, please take a look. It is fantastic. And the competition is judged by professional actors and directors from across the country. Now, we'd also like to mention the Corner Canyon High freshman-sophomore girls soccer team took first place in the Canyons Board Cup for this year. The Chargers beat Skyridge to win the title. Draper Park boys and Albion girls won first place trophies at the Canyons District Middle School Intramurals Cross Country Race. I believe we call that the Mike Sorois Invitational. He's not here to object, so I guess that's what we will do. And we also want to wish best of luck to our cross-country runners who will be vying for individual and team titles at the 5A and 6A races, which will be held later this week. And headed into the state football playoffs, we have 2 top-seeded teams, the Corner Canyon High Chargers in 6A and the Brighton High Bengals in 5A. So best of luck to the Bengals, the Chargers, the Alta High Hawks, the Hillcrest Huskies, and the Jordan High Beat Diggers in their drives for the titles. It is an exciting time to be part of Canyon School District. President Tingy, thank you for this time to honor those in the Canyons community as they reach for their dreams through education. Thank you. We turn the time back to you.
Thank you. We appreciate that. And it is really wonderful to learn and hear about all the great achievements that are happening in the district. And we appreciate your gathering that and helping us celebrate the wonderful things. Okay, it's my understanding that we have not had anyone sign up to address the board for our patron comments portion of the meeting. So next on the agenda will be the consent agenda. I will call for a motion for the consent agenda, and in making that motion, will you please read the items listed? Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to approve consent agenda item A, approval of minutes from October 6th, 2020. B, approval of hire and termination reports. D, approval of September financial reports. E, approval of LEA specific licenses. F, approval of 2020-2021 Utah grants application. G, approval of updates to 2020-2021 school calendar. And I'd like to poll item C for further discussion.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any discussion to the motion? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, that motion passes. Thank you. All right, Mr. Iverson, would you like to lead the discussion on item C?
Yeah, I'm curious from the administration, the purchasing bid is for fleet management software. I'm curious if we've had fleet management software in the past and if this is just an upgrade to it or an annual subscription, or if this is a new expense that we've had.
Yes, our previous part of our routing software, which is called Edgelog, that's where we route the buses using that software. They had a fleet management module that we used that they've somewhat discontinued. So we don't have that anymore. It wasn't very robust and very useful to begin with. So they came and asked me for permission to go out and find a fleet management software. We got about 170 buses, around 120 what we call white fleet non-buses. That would be our maintenance trucks, driver's ed cars, or computer repair vans. So we could track the the maintenance on these, the oil changes, the brake repairs, the tire rotations and replacements, and any major repairs. So I gave them permission to go out and do a bid or an RFP and a bid for this. You can see the results there. They had 3 respondents. They went in and graded those and came out with AssetWorks as the favorite, even though they were a higher cost, they had more functionality in the long term. So that's why we, over a 5-year contract period. And then if we continue with AssetWorks, starting in year 6 or 7, we actually start having a payback, even though we're only going out for 5 years. In 5 years, we have to bid it out again. We actually will start seeing a payback over the next item, which is dossier management system. So I wonder if that is that the answer to your?
Yeah, and just a follow-up question. So it sounds like this is net new expense.
Yeah, it's so net new, yeah.
Was this budgeted as part of our budgeting process?
Yeah. We include this in our what we call our annual software budget, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And any other questions on that? Okay, thank you, Mr. Wilcox, for that clarification. Okay, so on this item, I will, a motion to approve item 6C is in order.
I'll make a motion to approve item 6C. Approval of purchasing bids.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
Second to that motion.
Thank you. Any further discussion to that motion? Okay, seeing none. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes. Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda, item 7A, Utah College Application Week. And we'll turn the time over to Denise Haycock, Foundation Development Officer.
Sorry about that. Usually the foundation has a big group when we come to do a presentation, but tonight on behalf of the Canyons Education Foundation Board, I have with me Landon Bradfield, our board president.
Thank you, Denise. Happy to be here. Here, like Denise was saying, representing the Canyons Education Foundation, which is nonprofit representing Canyons School District, and it comprises of all volunteers. Everybody volunteers their time, talents, money, all of their passion to try and improve the lives of our kids. And along with the district helps with some resources of their own as well. We get to enjoy great people like Denise and Susan and Marilee, and that makes our board very productive, but also helps when we do fundraisers. 100% of the proceeds goes towards efforts like this. And the effort we're going to donate a check to today is UCA. Now, Governor Herbert serendipitously signed an official declaration making October 2020 Utah College Application and Awareness Month. Utah College Application Week, or UCA, is a statewide event, and it gives high school seniors the opportunity to apply to college during the school day with counselors available at the schools to assist students with this process. Now, the goal for UCA is to provide every high school senior the opportunity to complete at least one college or university application during the school day, with a particular focus on students who would be the first in their families to attend college, low-income students, or students who may have otherwise considered applying, who may not have otherwise considered applying. Also, as a part of this event, students will begin the process of submitting FAFSA, which will help determine the scholarship grants and loans they might receive. Again, representing the Canyons Education Foundation, we're proud to support and provide financial assistance again this year. We're offering up to $10,000 to cover college application fees for students in Canyons School District. Every student that wants to apply for college can do so. We want to congratulate students for taking the first step towards going to college. So without further ado, here's the check for $10,000.
That deserves some applause. Thank you. And thank you for your generosity. This is such an amazing program, and it does really open doors for young people in our community. And we appreciate the work of the foundation and your commitment to these students that we all care so deeply about.
Thank you.
And excuse me, will you also give our appreciation to the foundation board and all the amazing people that help out and work tirelessly? And Mr. Millerberg, I believe, has a comment as well.
Yeah. Now that Denise has walked to the back of the room, maybe she could walk back forward and take 20 seconds and talk about what Shields has going and what people district-wide could do to help in that regard.
Shields is one of our corporate sponsors, and they are currently running a give back campaign for October. And if you go to their Facebook page or Instagram page, you can choose a charity that you would like Shields to donate to. And we happen to know a good charity, and that would be the Canyons Education Foundation. So if you want to go nominate us, that would help us to get some of the funds that Shields is giving away. Thanks, Mom.
No, thank you, Denise.
Thank you very much. Okay, next is the approval of 2021-2022 school calendar and tentative approvals for the 22-23 and the 23-24 school years. This is a second reading, and I'll turn the time over to Dr. Floyd Stensrud.
Thank you, President Tingey and members of the board. I just, as a clarification, I just wanted to make sure that with regard to the consent agenda, I think that on that agenda, we were talking about the trimester close days, correct, for the elementary schools from November 17th to November 20th and the March 3rd date to March 5th. Those are that was the purpose of that item, correct?
Yes, and also the revised language regarding emergency day
Okay, so let's see if I can.
for the current year.
Okay, thank you. And that's what okay, so I just wanted to bring that up for the current year, that on this calendar as well, that I do have the language for the snow day or the emergency closure day, which reads, the board may determine an alternative option, i.e. digital learning day, President's Day, independent learning day for instructional time lost due to emergency school closures. So we had Saturday previously, as you recall, and I had consulted again a second time with ISD and got together with a few folks in that department, and we came up with the independent learning day, and we felt that that would be sufficient also in addition to the digital learning day. And those are actually two separate pieces of how we would, as far as the flexibility that would be afforded to the board. And that would be posted on this current calendar if you approve that. So just to offer that. And it is also on the Brighton calendar. That verbiage is also on the Brighton calendar for your review. So any questions in relation to the verbiage? Okay, all right. And I'm grateful for the calendar committee as well, who also approved that language prior to coming here today, so that they are well aware of what that language entails as well. So just again, with regard to the 2021-2022 calendar, there have been no changes since last year on this calendar, with our start date as August 16th and our end date May 26th, with our holidays and parent-teacher conferences intact in relation to this particular calendar. With regard to the Brighton 2021-22, those particular holidays are also intact. Their particular parent-teacher conferences are held in October, January, and April. On this particular calendar, the 2022-2023, K-12, our beginning of year is August 15th, and our end of year is May 26th. Again, the August 8th through the 12th on this calendar, I failed to mention that on the last calendar, are the days that the teachers are in session, and August 18th is our start of kindergarten. Our holidays, again, are intact. With this particular year, we do have the winter recess being a total of 11 days. and still able to end in May. And also with regard to the Brighton calendar, the parent-teacher conferences again are in October, January, and in April. With regard to the 2023-24 calendar, this calendar starts August 21st and ends May 30th. So with the push on the third Monday in this particular month, it starts a little bit later in August, which pushes us past Memorial Day in May. Still, according to the calendar committee, giving us enough time to have graduation dates in mind, ending May 30th. And also with our winter recess being 9 days instead within the 8 to 11 days, still within the range of 9, but having a 2-day week in December, which made that week a little bit odd. But if we push that, then we may be ending up with an end date in June, or a 1-day week would push us obviously to the 31st. So we felt that the May 30th was an adequate concession on that particular calendar year. With the Brighton calendar, again, we're looking at our parent conferences in October, January, and April. And that basically concludes those particular years. I know that I went very fast. I know that we did review these last time that we were here in the study session. Any questions in relation to these particular calendars that you might have?
Questions? Anyone? Okay, so thank you very much, and
You're
thank you
welcome.
to the calendar committee. So board, just a reminder, these will come back at our next board meeting for action. And the action would be to approve the 21-22 school year calendar and tentatively approve the 22-23 and 23-24 calendars.
Correct. That is
So-
right. That's yes.
So, and the reason why we need to give formal approval or final approval to the 21-22 calendar is so that our high schools can start scheduling graduation venues.
Correct.
Is historically why we've looked this far out, as well as to allow families opportunities to plan,
Right.
knowing what the dates are for the calendars.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
You're
Thank you to
welcome.
the committee. We know it's not an easy task. We appreciate what you're doing.
We appreciate your support.
Okay, next item is 7C, Online Learning Program Update. And I will turn the time over to Superintendent Robbins and Dr. Amber Roderick Landward.
Thank you, President Ting. I'd first off just like to tell everyone congratulations and thank you for the great efforts that have been shared and recognized tonight. It's pretty humbling and just, awesome to see so many people step up with their time, efforts, and financial resources to support our kids. I'd like to excuse Amber tonight. It's her son's birthday, and so she's with her family. And so before I turn it over to Jessie Hennifer is here in her stead, as well as our school performance leadership team to present, I just wanted to take a couple of minutes to share a few thoughts on the online learning update. First off, I want to express my appreciation to everyone in the district, including teachers, parents, staff, students, administrators, the board, and our communities at large. I think one thing that we've learned through this process is that it really is continuous. It's ongoing. There are things that we can't predict, nor continue to try to fully predict. And so it's really created an environment that requires us to be flexible in thinking about going forward. We know that blended learning, online learning, that these alternative methods and ways for students to engage are part of the new reality and likely will be part of our reality going forward. And really what that looks like, I think, is kind of the important element to why we're talking about this, right? And that's important because I think now is the time for us to really establish this vision going forward in thinking about how we can meet the needs of our individual students, regardless of time or place or space. And so with that, I just want to highlight a few of the comments that I made in last board meeting to kind of set the stage for Jesse and the school performance team. But I think when you're thinking about change and what that entails, you might have heard the term SAMR model when it comes to this change design, right? And thinking about something that is substituted or something that's new or an innovation that takes place, and then how an organization goes about augmenting that and then modifying the necessary changes that need to be made. But then also the end game is really a redesign and then cycling back through that process. And so I mention that just because I think it's important to stress the need for patience as we work through this. I know, the shift to online learning, whether it's the online learning platform itself for students that chose that, or students that are quarantined, or students that may be choosing to stay at home, or our parent-led option in the current crisis and pandemic that we're in. All of these different avenues become very important to our students and to their success and meeting their needs. But we've learned that that also requires a great deal of change in practice. So from just continuing on from a few of my comments from our last meeting, I think it's important that we continue to develop an online standalone leadership framework that really develops a common language and a unified practice going forward that aligns to the board tenets, that centralizes this vision, not only in vision and strategy, but also in a physical location. And one of the changes from my comments I made at last board meeting, my initial recommendation was that of hiring an online principal. Currently, after talking with our leadership team, their recommendation would be is that we go forward in the interim with a coordinator and then potentially hire an online principal in the spring. And it makes sense. I take their recommendation because thinking about the likely potential of taking a building principal out of a building and out of a school community right now may be disruptive to that entire ecosystem, as well as thinking about the unknown with enrollments. I think, right now we know that about 20% of our students are choosing the online option. But I think as the year goes on, we'll have a better handle and grasp on what our enrollments might look like in building this framework for this option for next year. So that's a little bit of a change from our last meeting, but I still think it answers the question in moving forward with really developing a centralized focus to support our online learners. Second is fostering a positive online community. And we know in all of the research that community presence is critical in the success of online learners. And so we'll hear more about that. Next was improving online teaching and learning through personalized learning pedagogy. And I'm excited for Jesse to be here, as well as our school performance team, to talk a little bit more about that. But going back to my comments from last board meeting around flexible content, student voice, differentiated instruction, and data-formed decisions, really under that umbrella of community of inquiry, which is also research around best practices in the online environment with social presence, teacher presence, and cognitive presence. And so my directive and vision for that is that these are the areas that we really focus on. It aligns very well with current practices in Canyon School District. As I mentioned earlier, do we have a corner market on the online teaching and learning environment? No. Are we getting better each day at this? Absolutely. And I'm very excited and proud of the work that's already occurred, even from last board meeting to now with this vision going forward. And then the last elements, intervention and support for our online students' well-being. We know how important that is to recognize that even though students may be learning online, that we still stay close to their social and emotional well-being and trying to maintain those relationships and connection. And then the last two were on teacher professional learning and growth. This has been quite a whirlwind. I recognize that for a lot of our teachers and staff and principals, including parents. It's not easy, but I think we all recognize that this will continue to be a necessity and a need that we address and recognize. And then lastly, the piece on technology infrastructure. And I think Leon will update us a bit on that, and maybe in his final remarks on some exciting news that's occurred with our technology support. But I really appreciate Scott McCombs and his IT department. As he mentioned before, everyone is carrying a heavier burden in their workloads. But especially when it comes to technology support and IT support and infrastructure support, that's a heavy lift as we try to infuse more technology support to make these strategies a reality. So with that, I just want to tell everyone in the district, our teachers, our staff, our principals, just how much I appreciate all of their dedicated work. As I mentioned, it's tough in a changing environment that can change on a dime, and one that really requires us to be more than flexible and more than we ever expected to be. But here we are, and teaching and learning is continuing, and people in the district at all levels are continuing to engage the best that they can. So with that, I want to introduce, I think, Jesse, you're going to go first? Okay, Jesse will go first, and then school performance, and then we'll take some questions after that. Jesse.
Good evening. It's been a while since I've been up here to present to you. It's good to see all of you this evening. If I might take one moment, I wanted to do a shout out. Actually wanted to bring the board some input from who I believe is the best 8-year-old Canyon School District student. He would like to let you know that he is 1, proud to be an Edgemont Eagle, but 2, excited to be a Glacier Hills Yeti. So I just needed to share that. He asked if I would do that. He also asked if I could change the Yeti to a duck, and I said I do not have that power. So I do appreciate that, and so do our students. So yeah, I'm going to present, and you guys are welcome to jump in anytime, so please do. So this is an online learning update. I am taking the place of Amber Roderick Landward to do the best I can today. This is the breakout of the focus, or the presentation focus. We're going to cover 4 things within this. Summarize the COVID learning feedback, which is feedback that we've gotten from parents, from teachers, from the board as a whole, from principals, and try to summarize that. There's a lot of feedback, as you know. Like to review solutions that are currently in place that our teachers and our principals have implemented as this has gone along throughout the 8 weeks, if you can believe it's only about that. Review adjustments for second quarter. So some of the things that we're looking at already to make adjustments to improve what we're doing. and then planning beyond COVID. So all of this, we've moved a long way. And when hopefully COVID is over, what does that look like for Canyon School District? Like we've moved tremendous steps. So where are we going to be at? And Dr. Robbins mentioned a little bit of that with Canyon's online school. So the first part of this is summarizing some of that feedback. So some of the challenges that have come up as we've looked through what we've implemented and as we've gotten feedback from many different stakeholders. So the first is synchronous learning expectations. One of the pieces of feedback has come from every stakeholder, and the expectations are not clear to everyone who's involved, whether that's parents, whether that's students, teachers. They often have different perceptions of what those expectations were for synchronous learning. And so we think it's important to clarify that so that we're all talking the same language and we're expecting the same things. Student participation in synchronous learning has come up, especially with the transition of our high schools to some of the different models, whether it's the split schedule that they're currently on, 3 of them, or the virtual, whole school virtual, or students that are out on quarantine, or that self-quarantine or quarantine based on contact tracing. But we have a low participation when it comes to some of those synchronous learning opportunities that teachers present and give. And there's multiple reasons we can talk through that throughout this presentation. Next is the discrepancy between parent and student perceptions of online learning preferences. I believe it was just last board meeting, you were presented with the data from the surveys. And many parents wanted to see synchronous in a live stream type model. And our student perceptions or preferences seem to lean toward more of an asynchronous recording of a presentation or a slide deck that was narrated so that they could go back and forth. So that's been a challenge. We see at least in that survey that this seems to be 2 different perceptions. Online learning requires significantly more planning time for teachers. We know that. We've heard from our teachers. You as a board have made some significant changes to support teachers in providing additional time. Access to devices and connectivity, which Dr. Robbins presented earlier. This is the digital divide. This is what Scott McCombs and the district as a whole is working on to try to create that equity for students who may not have either the device or the connectivity. And finally, outreach to students who aren't engaging. And that's students who are engaging, who are signed up for online asynchronous or synchronous learning. We have students that haven't engaged and some who haven't engaged for quite some time, some not from the beginning of the year. So how do we reach those students? How do we help them engage? What can we do to eliminate barriers that may be creating a scenario where they can't or won't engage? So those are the challenges, the summary of a lot of the things that we've heard. And like I said, there's more, but these are the 6 big ones that we would like to focus on to make some big changes or to address. Next is the solutions we already have in place. And this came up from many of our parents and our teachers as we were looking at things that we currently have here in Canyon School District or that we've recently made changes for. So the first, I believe Dr. Roderick Landward talked through parents can observe students in Canvas. Students may not want parents to observe in Canvas. Parents may not know that they can observe in Canvas, but that is a solution. And we may just need to clarify and communicate better to all of our stakeholders that that's an opportunity or an option that can help that communication between parents and students and help our parents be partners with our teachers and students in learning. The board recently approved a modified weekly schedule, the 4 in-person days and the 1 online, to give our teachers that additional time to create, design, provide feedback to students to learn more about what they're doing on the online model, because we've taken time to provide professional development, but we're really only 8 weeks in, just over 8 weeks. And that's the time that they've implemented it. It's not a lot. So they're continually learning. We're continually learning how to do this best. But we have provided the best practices in online learning. Those are the Canvas expectations, which we rolled out in the summer and the early fall before teachers or students came back to school. And we've discussed and looked through the best practices and the research for asynchronous and synchronous. And we'll talk more about those two in a moment. Teacher professional development and coaching. We have and we've done professional development. What that looks like currently is different because of the lack of subs and pulling teachers out. And we have coaches in our buildings, but I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the challenges we're having with that. We have an achievement coach in every building, all of our elementary, middle, and high schools. And we have ed tech coaches as well, providing support in buildings. Our ed tech coaches were split between 3 schools. We've recently made an adjustment with our high schools going between models to move all of our secondary ed tech coaches to the high schools, which has provided 1 ed tech coach per high school. On top of that, we also have our IT field techs who are part of the IT department, but they are supporting with that hardware, that setup. They're supporting in other ways for our teachers. Next solution that's in place is a majority of teachers are meeting current synchronous expectations. It means that we have taught these best practices, and our teachers have worked incredibly hard to hone their skills and build their skills and implement. We still have a long way to go, obviously, because we're just in the beginning of this, but our teachers, a majority of them are doing, are meeting those current expectations. And here it says, I'm not even sure that's new. X teachers are live streaming. That's I can tell you, we do have teachers that are live streaming. XX is a question mark on how many, but our high schools in changing from model to model, they have teachers who are live streaming portions of their class, but there are others who are not. So that's part of a solution that we currently have in place. Our Parent Connection website, we created at the beginning of March, and we've continually updated it to provide additional support for parents, additional resources, places to go. And then finally, the Comcast vouchers, which is a solution to help support the lack of devices or lack of connectivity for our students. Now, these are solutions that are in place. Have they solved everything? No, absolutely not. They haven't, but they are good solutions and solutions that we've moved forward with. Some of these we need to tighten up, but they are solutions that are in place that are helping partially solve some of the problems or the barriers that we saw in the earlier slide. Next is the online learning adjustments. Wow, this is older. It is? Oh, wow. Okay, appreciate it. I will continue talking because information's the same, but the wording is off. So it's put me out of my zone. You're all right, totally okay. But online learning adjustments, and this is what we're moving towards, some of the things that we need to do. Yeah, I'm sorry, this is way off. So do you mind if we pause just for a moment? Because there's a lot of additional info here.
So yeah, take a minute.
I'm sorry. It does give me time to talk you all into Glacier Hill Ducks if you would like to talk through that, but. Thank you, Cindy. No,
So while they're doing that,
Yeah,
I will make a comment.
Yeah.
I did look up on the website the document about the Canvas expectations.
Yes.
And I thought that was really helpful to me to get a picture of what we're asking the teachers to do, as well as what is available then for students.
Thank you.
If the teachers, if their pages are updated and
Right.
follow that outline, I think it is really helpful. And I would suggest that any parents of online students take a look at that as well.
Yeah, I appreciate you pointing that out. Those expectations, although we've asked our teachers to follow that for that consistency, which is one of the things we heard about in the spring, was kind of the lack of consistency between classes or between teachers, and it made it hard for students and parents to know where to go. Particularly, that was a solution to help kind of push towards that consistency. And our teachers have done a really great job of updating their Canvas pages and providing that. And we did try to share it. It is on the Parent Connections website. But like I said, with a change as big as we're going through currently, it is hard to, well, it's hard for many to keep up with the communications that are coming in. And sometimes the communications aren't going out because so many things are happening. But I do appreciate that. Yes. Good. Yeah, we're good. We're good. Thank you so much. No, that was taken off because I don't think we could find the number for that. But that's something we need to look forward to, collecting that information and that data. But we didn't have that, which is why I'm pretty sure it was struck. The next portion, sorry, now I'm going forward. The online learning adjustments. So these are things that we know we need to do upcoming, starting now, actually. And some of these were mentioned by Dr. Robbins in his initial statements, but we know we need to build and support an online community. And that's for parents, students, and teachers. The need for that community, for teachers to develop and problem solve together with their colleagues, but also that online community where parents and students can ask questions and get support that they need. We know we need to work on that. So that's an upcoming adjustment that we will be looking at. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. I mentioned one of the barriers was the lack of clarification about those expectations, or at least the lack of common understanding or perception of those. We need to look at that. And it was really highlighted with the high schools moving between models and what students are doing at that secondary level. It's not only secondary, but it really highlighted that online learning, those students who chose that online model, looks different than what a student who is quarantined, whether it's self-quarantine or quarantine because of contact tracing. And that's different from what school-wide virtual looked like when our high schools moved to that, which is changed and looks a little different from what our split schedule looks like. And currently, even our elementaries, although they have teachers that are fully online and fully in person, the teachers who are teaching in person, they still have that quarantine happening. How are they supporting those students? And our middle schools, they have the online and the quarantine as well. And hopefully we don't need to go to school-wide virtual again, but we need to look at that and be prepared with the expectations so that parents and students and our teachers are all on the same page if that occurs. We also know that we need to make adjustments in elective exploration or elective choices. From parents, that's been something that we've heard quite a bit about. We've known that we've needed that. To start, we focused on our core classes so that it was manageable to create this. And we'll talk a bit about it, but electives, some of them don't transition as well to a virtual platform, or at least we don't have great answers for that. So we need to talk through that. And then the additional support solutions. This takes a lot. You know, as a board, everything that you've had to do to make adjustments for our district as a system. Our system is huge. Our teachers need support. Our principals need support. Our parents need support. So what is it moving forward that we can provide what we currently aren't? So this is just detailing the build and support an online community. One of the things that we'd like to move forward with is creating a district steering committee for online. We would like to pull together teachers, principals, and district administrators. I think this would be heavy on teachers because ultimately they're the ones who, when decisions are made and they're implementing, they see what is feasible, what's not, and they see solutions that other people aren't thinking of. Our principals see the impact on students and parents and teachers. And then district administrators, as our job is to support this system change, having them on that steering committee. Details about that, I don't know, but we do know that we need something in the way of that steering committee. Second, we need to add secondary online leadership team. We already have this for the elementaries. A short description of this is we have teachers from each of the grades in elementary who represent other teachers, and they come together often to provide feedback and adjustments. It was easier in our elementary because it's less complex. Our teachers in elementary, for the most part, are teaching full online or full in person, so it was easy to pull those teachers together. In the secondary, as you know, a teacher might be teaching one section online and the rest in person. In our high schools, it might be a teacher who's teaching 2 sections of in-person bio, 2 sections of in-person chemistry, and 2 sections of online bio, all being, difficult to pull together that online team. But we know we need to do that. And how we're going to do that, not sure yet. Some ideas, but we know that's needed because it's been beneficial for our elementary. Next is formalizing secondary IPLCs. And this isn't the IPLCs that I think we're normally thinking about, because all of our schools have professional learning communities. This is those IPLCs for online teachers to problem solve the problems that come up specifically in that online realm. They're already part of content PLCs or in our middle schools, interdisciplinary PLCs, but trying to pull these teachers together to provide support for each other is, again, it's difficult. It's time consuming. PLCs take time, and although they benefit in the long run, it does take time. We need to refine coaching supports. I had mentioned we've had to adjust where our coaches are at just to provide supports. But moving forward, we know our teachers have been overwhelmed. They've worked incredibly hard. And I'd like to recognize our coaches for the work that they do as well in supporting teachers. So when our teachers are trying to provide all of these opportunities for students, they're leaning on coaches for their expertise or for that support. And our coaches have more requests than they can fill. And that's achievement coaches, ed tech coaches, IT field techs. They have a lot on them. So how can we maybe better organize or better provide supports to our teachers? And finally, we need to clarify the SST or student support team process. Now, our student support team in our schools is the way our students get additional supports if they're academically struggling, socially and emotionally struggling, if they're showing early warning signs, no attendance or slipping grades. If a team or if teachers can't provide interventions that support them, they refer them to the SST team so that team can focus on different interventions or more intense interventions. We have a really great process in our schools in the traditional way back in the old day of 2019, but with this adjustment and students in different places, the process it doesn't flow quite the same. For example, attendance. We're in a weird place with attendance and online and students on quarantine. So we need to figure out some of those things. So those are upcoming changes for building that online support community. Here's a couple of more details on the elective exploration. Working with that district steering committee, looking at exploring online enrichment opportunities. So if an elective isn't feasible for whatever reason, are there enrichment activities we can provide for students that are online learners or are in quarantine that gives them some of the opportunities and skills that they would get from an elective? For example, a wellness challenge in place of PE if that's not feasible. Debate if that's something that can support the student if we can't do a certain elective online, or Lego League. You know, we may not be able to do certain coding classes is a poor example, but but you get where I'm going. Like, we may not be able to provide the elective class. Can we provide an elective opportunity or an enrichment opportunity? That's not to say we won't look at exploring electives, but there are courses that have more potential than others. An example of one, especially one that's that parents have been emailing about and probably have given you feedback about as well, is our health course, right? It's an elective course, but there are so many things within the middle school health class that students benefit from, whether that's the suicide awareness portion, whether that's the sex education portion, whether that's the skills that they learn in BOTFIN, which is part of the curriculum. Those are important parts, and parents want that. How can we better provide that? And can we do that in second semester so that these students who are in a 6th or 7th grade can get that if they've chosen one model or another? The next portion, I'm just going to talk quickly through synchronous and asynchronous learning, because then we're going to get to the different models and hopefully a clarification of the expectations in each of those models for both teachers and students, and some adjustments that we'll see as well. So synchronous and asynchronous learning, we use these together, and the best practice shows that we use these together so that we are intentionally designing our lessons for portions that we may need synchronous, portions that can be asynchronous. What's going to get our students to the learning intention, and so that they can show evidence of meeting that learning intention, which is a success criteria. Synchronous learning is learning happening at a specific time in a specific place. To summarize that, it's real time. Like, it's occurring right now, whether it's through Zoom or whether it's through a Canvas dialogue, but it's happening real time. And then asynchronous learning is happening at a different time, different place. It could be before or after a synchronous learning opportunity. It could be late at night, it could be early in the morning. These two things, as we're talking through them, are important as we work together with synchronous and asynchronous, and intentionally design what our courses look like, because we have great pedagogy in person and we know what great practices we can do with online. We want to make sure that we don't lose great teaching to meet the need of a device, for example. So we'll talk a little bit about this as we go through what the expectations are in the different models. I kind of talked through this, but synchronous is real-time learning with a deliberate combination of any or all of these. And it may be any or all of these in a day or a week, but direct teaching of a concept or skill. That could be through a Google Meet. That could be possibly through live stream, but it's that direct teaching. Teacher guided review and practice. That's important as well. That could be happening in real time. Teacher-led class discussions. The teacher might not be the one presenting, but they will be or could be the ones providing the grouping on a Google Meet, for example, which is similar to student work groups, organizing those students in real time so that they're engaging with each other. And then open questions. Open questions is that support for the learning after you've provided explicit instruction and provided some practice. There's oftentimes some students that need that additional or reteaching, for example. So all of these can occur in synchronous instruction. Now, as we talked about this, it's not all of these in one day. It may not be all of these in 1 week. It's what the student or the teacher decides is best for the students and the learning intentions that they've created for that week. And it does depend on the instructional model, whether it's trying to reach students in quarantine, whether it's our students that are learning fully online, whether it's a school-wide virtual scenario that some of our high schools have gone to, or whether it's a split schedule, which some of our schools are on. Each of those models kind of requires something different to be effective. And finally, designed to support the learning intentions. Whatever a teacher chooses, the mode that they're getting this information to their students and that learning engagement, it's focused on their learning intentions and success criteria based on their content and their outcomes that they want. So this is the portion where I get into each of the 4 models: online, quarantine, split schedule, and school virtual. And there's going to be a slide for teacher expectations and one for student expectations. Now, some of these through the 4 models are similar. So the first 2 slides, I'll probably take a little bit more time, but some of these bullets are repeated for different models. And what we've done to make it easier and more efficient for time's sake is we've highlighted in red what's different between the different models. So an online learning scenario, which is a student who's chosen to learn all online, the teacher expectations to clarify what is happening and hopefully to make this consistent across all our stakeholders and their understanding of this. The first is follow Canyon's Canvas expectations and online learning template. And like I had said in a previous previous slide, our teachers worked incredibly hard through the summer and the early fall to learn these things, and they're currently in that implementation. And we have so many teachers who are really doing or meeting exactly the expectations. They're following the template. And we have even more that are just consistently improving. So that's the first expectation. We've said this is the consistency we want to provide for our parents and students. And so that's the first bullet. Second is post the week schedule and access information for synchronous learning on Canvas homepage. If we want synchronous and we need synchronous, our students and our parents need to know when that's occurring. So posting when that's going to be. Is it the first 15 minutes of class? Is it the last 15 minutes? Whenever that is, posting it so our students know when to log on. Next is provide daily synchronous learning activities aligned to learning intentions and success criteria. Now for elementary, we're asking 60 minutes a day. For secondary, it's at least 15 minutes per class period. And again, synchronous is a lot of different modes, but it is in that real time, whether it's students interacting with students in real time, teacher presenting information in real time. There's at least 15 minutes in the secondary and 60 in the elementary. Record synchronous sessions or provide a comparable asynchronous support. This is important because, especially in our secondary, online students may be taking a Utah studies course and a 7th grade science course, and the teachers who are providing that, their prep is at the same time. And so that student can't be in both classes at the same time. So there's going to have to be a choice of the student on what to engage with synchronously. And on the other side, there has to be something for that student to refer to for the class that they couldn't attend in person, in real time. Next is provide a deliberate sequence of asynchronous learning activities in the Canvas module. Our teachers are doing a great job of this. As you look through Canvas courses, there's this flow of information, practice, reteaching in a lot of those Canvas modules so that teachers, or for students, it makes sense what they're doing and what the next step is or should be. Next is summarize the week's learning intentions for our students because they're online. The more communication, the more times we can summarize, the easier it is for the student to understand what they need to do and what they need to learn and how to demonstrate they've learned it. So those are the teacher expectations. Next is the student expectations, because this only works in a partnership because that's what our teachers and students are. So for students, for our older students, they need to invite their parent, guardian as an observer in Canvas. So their parent knows and can see what is expected of their student. For our younger students, that is, we've provided instructions on how, on the Parent Connections website, on how to become an observer for that. Our secondary can do that as well. But that's important so that they're together in that learning journey for online. Next is the student needs to review the synchronous schedule. If they need to be in class at a certain time online, they need to know when that is. And if their teacher has posted it, they need to be responsible for being there. Next is review instructional summary in modules each day for elementary or each class period for secondary. So that is the summary of what's going to occur and how the student will know they've learned it. Next is attend synchronous learning sessions. So for secondary students, like I said, they may have overlapping classes. So they need to make that choice on which one to attend and which one they're going to asynchronously engage with. And then access that asynchronous option when they are unable to attend it synchronously. They need that information. Our teachers have worked hard to provide that instruction or that engagement or activity. So the students need to engage in it so that they can perform the tasks, learn the skill, get the practice. Students need to submit all their work. We shouldn't have to say that, but you have to, kids, you have to submit your work. If you're doing work, submit it, man. And girls and ladies and gentlemen. Contact teachers directly with questions about lessons or assignments. Our teachers are developing the modules. They're developing the flow of the learning and the information and activities. They're going to be the best option for what's occurring within that Canvas course and in class. If you're having, as a student or a parent, some other problem, technology-wise, being able to log in, we're going to have them contact Canyon's online office for other questions. Canyon's online office will come up at the very end, which is not too far from here. So hold on, we'll talk through what that is. But again, it's a support for our students and parents. Now I'm going to jump into the individual student quarantine portion, teacher expectations and student expectations. If you don't mind, I would just like to hit the highlight portion. Is that fine? In being respectful of time. So we have some of the same expectations of teachers from the online portion to an individual student who's on quarantine, whether that's self-quarantine or whether it's a quarantine based on contact tracing. The big change here is the expectation for that synchronous portion. And that could be multiple things. Teachers could have the option of live streaming instruction for a portion of their classroom. They could have recorded target lesson segments and present that, or they could post instructional resources to support the week's learning intentions. So it could be synchronous or asynchronous for our students who are in quarantine. And our teachers have the option of using the mode that they currently know and understand and can implement, and choosing the option that works best for their learning outcomes and their success criteria. For students, the big change or the change in expectation is these individual student quarantine, they need to attend all available synchronous learning opportunities. So they have to know if and when those synchronous learning opportunities are available. And part of their responsibility is to engage in that time. If our teachers are working hard to provide these experiences and this instruction, we want students to be there. That's why our teachers are doing what they're doing. So kids, come. That's the big change for the individual student quarantine. Next is the third portion, which is the school-wide virtual. Again, I think we all hope that this isn't something we go to, but to be prepared and to outline the expectations. Most of these are the same as online, with the exception of the third bullet, and that's provide daily synchronous instruction aligned to learning intentions and success criteria for 60 minutes in the elementary, again, an hour, or 20 to 30 minutes every other class period, every class period for secondary. Our students who are out on virtual are following that same schedule that they had in person. It's just now all virtual. So that expectation for synchronous instruction, whether that's Google Meets, whether that's online discussions with other students, whether that's a live stream for a portion of the class period, those are options, and students need to engage with that. For our students, everything's pretty much the same as above, attending all of their synchronous sessions, submitting all their work, and so forth. And finally, the split schedule. The big change here for teacher expectations is provide asynchronous learning or live stream at least 30 minutes of in-person instruction daily. Every class period for secondary or content area for elementary. And again, it needs to be aligned to their learning intentions and success criteria, which our teachers are doing a fabulous job at. And then for students, they're attending in-person classes when they should be in person in the school, and they're attending virtually on those assigned days that they're outside of school. So that brings me to the end of the first portion. There are only just a couple more slides, and I believe Dr. Dowdle will be taking this portion to the end. So I'll still be here for questions, obviously, but that ends my portion.
Thank you, Dr. Dowdle.
So first, my apologies. I am the one who sent in an early edition when I was trying to send in the latest edition of this PowerPoint. This one is the second to the last one, and there's one word that was changed, and I'll address that. So what Rick was referring to earlier about creating a physical location and employees to work with our online group, this is what this is referring to. And the first idea is we want it to have a physical location, one location is identifiable, one location that parents, students could find if they need to. Second thing is, as Rick discussed earlier, we'd be looking right now at an online coordinator as an interim position, because pulling a principal, if that's who was selected to lead this, would be very disruptive to a school. But one of the biggest tasks that they would have would be to help create an online community. So get that feel of a community where in a lot of cases it's not. One thing I do want to remind you about is that we do have a big section that's been longstanding in our district that's online learning, that's CVHS, but it doesn't work the same way as what we're talking about with the online portion. And CVHS actually does have a steering committee, and it's been functioning for years. And so we'd like to get that other part going now, and in the future, we'll see how they work together. As a part of that, we'd also be looking, I think you know this, for a Canvas help desk technician. This is an addition to our IT help desk, but in this case, we would physically locate that person with the coordinator, also with an online support assistant. I think you may be aware of Amy Nielsen right now in communications, who is doing an outstanding job supporting our public as they call in with questions. That's a very similar type of job that we'd be looking to place physically in that group. And then the last part is that we would look to hire some outreach assistants, otherwise known as success coaches. These are paraprofessionals or ESPs, and their big job is going to be to reach out to students who are not engaging, because we have a number of those right now, and teachers could really use the help. Yes, they do their outreach, and yes, they should continue to do that, but this would be a support to help. Something that wouldn't be added right into this physical location, but is being used right now, is out of Karen Sterling's department, especially with the Spanish speakers and others that need outreach. They have specialists that are doing that right now to help support those students, find those students if necessary. So the actions that we need to do in regard to this would be to develop a timeline for routine feedback collection from stakeholders. So it's important for us to know how we're doing. We'd need to develop that timeline, develop the instruments, and gather information so that we can continue to improve and build in this regard. We would need to reassign or hire additional support, as I've described on that previous slide. We'd need to communicate with families so that they have a clear understanding of the Canvas Observer instructions. They would understand what the support network looks like, how it functions. We need to get that kind of information out to them. Also, to provide students with a Canvas refresher. Yes, they've been taught about Canvas, but the question is, do they need a refresher? And I think some of them may need that. I think we learned a little bit last board meeting where some of that communication may not be getting to their parents about what Canvas looks like and how they can observe and support that way. Also, review the expectations with teachers. Those are the expectations that Jesse has just gone over, to make sure that our principals understand what they are and what the teachers and how to help the teachers know what they are as well as provide live stream support for our teachers. That has a lot to do with our ed techs right now and with the equipment that we're gathering. And we need to get out there and help set it up and help them understand how to use it effectively. So we have a number of those kits that are they all here? Are you aware? They're not all here yet. Okay, so this week we should be receiving the rest of those kits. So this is the last change that was supposed to go up there. Align Canyons Connect is the wrong working title. Canyons Connect actually belongs to the foundation and a different thing that they're working on, and we didn't want to confuse you. So here I'm trying to correct that since I sent in the wrong version. I had in there maybe Canyons Online as a different working title. So please understand that we're trying to not confuse you with that. But align the Canyons Online mission and vision with CSD board strategic vision and tenets to make sure that we're following what the board has already created and wants us to support. Also, revisit the USB-E portrait of a graduate. We fully recognize that that is a work that the Board of Education is working on. We'll look to, I don't know the timeline exactly, but you'll be looking at working on that in the future. And then also design Canyon's personalized learning framework for students and teachers. And once again, personalized learning is allowing students to have more control over pace and place of their own learning. And I believe that in the future, we will be looking at something that students access and use that is different than pre-COVID for many of our students, because they'll have more of a blend of what they choose to do. And now we will be happy to answer questions.
Okay, thank you for that presentation. Okay, board, questions, comments? Mr. Wrigley?
I'm going to remove my mask for a minute, if it's okay, so I can be physically distant, but not socially. First off, I want to voice my appreciation for everybody in this room. You guys sit here probably on a 20-hour workday as you start early in the morning and you sit here with us sometimes till 10 or 11 o'clock at night, and that is greatly appreciated. I also want to thank our parents for being working with us on this, and ask some of them and ask them to have some patience too in this process. This has been an interesting process. It'd be sort of like the governor telling General Motors, you're closing down your plant on one thing. You're no longer making regular cars on Friday, but by Tuesday, we want you to start making electric cars. But we also want you to have the regular cars too. And then, by the way, we want 3 or 4 different models of electric cars to be done, and we'll give you maybe 6 months to get it done. So, I mean, when you look at this in the regular marketplace, you know, you say, oh, you can't do 3 or 4 different models of electric cars in 6 months. You guys have done a great job. As you talk about, and this interesting thing is I'm sitting here, I get overwhelmed, as probably everybody else does, just to the language changes we've had to have and the concept changes. Over the last 100 years, we're pretty much into like education. The last 11 years, we spent a whole bunch of energy as far as Canyons on getting first-rate education within our district. And then all of a sudden, the carpet was pulled out from underneath us, and we had to continue with the first class in-person education, but now we had to come up with a first class online education. And I think and we had to do that without very much extra money. We had some money from devices and stuff like that, but not really for staff or anything. And I've just seen amazing with the teachers and our staff and have done over the last several months. And so I asked the parents again, we are moving forward as fast as we possibly can, maintaining about 4 or 5 different car designs at the same time on the assembly line. And I think we'll probably by the end of the year, we'll have it down a little bit better. But this is sort of like what they did the freeway years ago. It was a build as you design as you build. You know, you design this bridge, then you go on the next, and it's a little bit different. And as you move down the freeway, because they just didn't have enough time in building the freeway the original time they did that, they had to move quickly. And we've had, so I've seen a lot of changes. I mean, a lot of people say, well, you're always changing. Well, I'd much rather always change if we're moving positive. And I think we're doing it in a positive direction. As we build our cars on the line, we're finding better ways to do that, becoming more efficient. And we're having to repurpose a whole bunch of staff. And for that, I appreciate all of our staff that we're willing to retool and pivot so quickly. So you've presented a whole bunch of stuff to us. I appreciate the hours of work that has gone into this. I don't really have too many questions of it. I think it's a good plan. And I know probably within the next 3 months, you're going to present the same thing over again, and you're going to have a whole bunch of other interventions and greater things coming on. I just ask the public to be patient with us as we do this process, give input as they have, and we'll continue to move forward. My vision, as you said, the last one is I really see us starting to become competitive in the whole market of online education. I think you're going to have some students that really like Western Governors University, huge online. And I think you're going to start seeing some of that. And then we're able to provide many different versions of online, way more than just a typical online high school that you'd see advertised all the time on the radio. We're able to do all kinds of stuff. So I think it's a great time for us, but it's such a growth period of time. It's just been overwhelming, the growth that we've had to do in such a period of time. So again, I commend everybody for what they've done. I'm feeling secure as a board member that we're moving as fast as we can in a logical way and putting this together. And we can't kill the staff in the process. You know, we have too many irons in the fire, I guess you'd say, at the same time. And so be patient, I guess, in the process. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions, comments? Mr. Iverson?
Yes, I also wanted to thank you for the presentation and for your efforts. And I think I really appreciate, especially you, Superintendent, your willingness to hear our concerns and direct the staff to begin to make changes. And it feels like we're on the right path and on the right track. And I appreciate that. And I look forward to continuing to see how this is implemented. And we, to Steve's point, we don't necessarily know the future, but I think we do know that it's important to adapt and adapt more quickly than we have. And I feel like with what you've presented tonight, we're headed that direction. So thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? Mrs. Oaks?
So Jesse and Bobby both did an excellent job presenting, and I appreciate some of the changes and improvements to the presentation since I saw it yesterday even. There's a few basic comments I wanted to address. First, with regard to the steering committee, I think it will be really important for us to get feedback from parents and students on that committee as well. For as much as I know it's critical to have administrators and teachers there, it's important for the customer to give feedback on how it's received and how it appears to them and, their experience with that. I think that will be important. Another thing I was going to say is that I am in full support of additional support personnel. I think this is so critically important. It's going to make or break this whole year. And I do think, individuals like in Amy's position, part of why she's so good is because she's been trained with communications and customer service and that professionalism. And I do think it's important that we maintain that with, through communications in part, since they touch so many different areas, and that's the first place a parent is going to go in their mind about when they need help with something like that. And so I think it's important that we keep some of that clear and have that bridge working properly. Some of the other thoughts I had, and I had a good discussion today with Rick about this. So one of the concerns I had, and may be coming up with me a bit more because I have 2 kids at Quarter Canyon, and a lot of my community goes to that high school, and we've just finished 5 weeks of online learning, right? So we've had a little bit more exposure to this. One of the concerns I had was making sure that the synchronous learning requirement from teachers is not only a question and answer session. That has come up as kind of a persistent question, and I hear from a lot of parents about that. They're very concerned. We've seen incredible examples of online learning from Draper Park Middle School, where those kids got up and they had scheduled online check-in time, like a roll call with their teachers every day. There was in fact, it was interesting talking to my daughter. She felt like going back to school felt seamless, which is amazing, right? So amazing. And I, and doing a little reconnaissance and searching out for information with other school districts, there are other school districts that have had to have high schools go totally online. And the feedback that I got from superintendents and other employees at those districts was that those high schools that required like the first 10 or 15 minutes of their regularly scheduled class, they were able to take roll with their kids. They knew who was showing up. They were able to figure out who was falling through the cracks. They were able to offer that kind of social and emotional support, at least to some measure, address questions in the moment with those kids. And they felt like they had something to wake up and get ready for. It provided some consistency and some structure to their day. And that is one of the biggest things I'm hearing from parents that they are desperate for. So in my mind, I know one of the questions, Amber and I discussed back and forth a little bit yesterday was that sometimes the teachers are concerned and frustrated that they're preparing synchronous lessons and then the kids don't always show up. I can promise you from personal experience as a parent who went and was like really adamant about trying to get on top of when my high schoolers had synchronous learning, when it was inconsistent and not the same time, it was so hard to follow. Whereas my middle schooler, it was right as rain. I knew exactly when she was supposed to be on. So that consistency from the parent and student is going to dramatically increase if they have a consistent time that they're expected to be on based off of what is already a set school schedule. Does that make sense?
It does. I agree. Our I mean, one of the first things that teachers learn in their program is to set up routines. There's a reason why we have routines in all of our classes, and it's because our students succeed with that. So I understand what you're saying, and those routines are important. I agree. We have had weird routines and a shakeup in routines, and I think the transition has been hard. But I do think, as you said, we've had schools and teachers who have tried to do the best they can with that. But yeah, obviously, not obviously, it is something that we can work on.
I think that's great. I mean, honestly, it was fascinating to me how my middle schooler, if I came down and asked her a question at 7:31, she'd give me the finger like this. I'm in school, Mom. And that was a totally different experience with my high schoolers. And actually the transition going back on yesterday to school has been much harder for them than it was for my middle schooler. So I thought that was a very interesting sign. The other thing I want to commend all of you on and thank you for is the fact that in the conversation I had with Rick today, it became very apparent that you have done what we've asked in terms of going and really researching best practices. And he sent me some wonderful articles. I think other members of the board would find them very fascinating, from institutions like Stanford and Harvard, ASU, Edutopia, University of Colorado, all giving research-based recommendations on what constitutes best online learning. It was really, really helpful for me. Part of it is social presence, teacher presence, cognitive presence, making sure that there's quality discussion, that the kids feel supported. And I can see, and especially the latest version of this, where you guys are going with that and the vision behind it. I really appreciate that. And I appreciate your patience with us. I recognize it. Your position does not come out without a ton of challenges, including from board members who are saying, we need this yesterday. But I think you're doing a great job, and I appreciate you being open and hearing our concerns. It's very different to look at things on black and white and paper versus to understand what the student experience is. And I think keeping those lines of communication open are so important. And I appreciate everything that you've done to hear those things. So again, thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Schill.
Okay, I just want to add my thanks, because I just think when I look at this presentation, I mean, this has come a long way from the beginning. And I really do appreciate you guys listening to the board and taking all of our concerns and acting on them. And I do have a little bit of a concern, and I'm just wondering, like, how are teachers taking this? I do not want to overload them. Right. I mean, I think they're doing amazing, but we just gave them Friday, and I'm just hoping that that is enough for them to be able to take time and to be able to pull all that together. And I really do think, I do appreciate parents and how I think they've been patient and are working with teachers. And I do think communication is the key, though. I think we need to over communicate. Like, I think we need to send multiple emails to parents. Because I just have people telling me right and left, oh, I didn't know that, or I didn't hear that. And I know we've sent it because I've seen it anyway. So I just want to remind, like, I think parents during this year want to be over communicated with. Because maybe if they miss one email, they'll see the next one. And then also, I just want to kind of give a thanks to teachers, because I have actually heard from multiple parents what an incredible job teachers are doing. And especially when Brighton and all the high schools were on a hybrid. I mean, I've had multiple parents just say, these teachers are going just above and beyond and everything they're doing. So I just want to add my thanks to them. And I just appreciate all of them. And also principals, it's principal month. So I appreciate them. They're doing incredible, and they have a huge job this year. So thank you.
Thank you. Other comments or questions? Mrs. Oakes.
I did receive a communication from a parent during all of this who suggested that perhaps we can inform parents of what the synchronous versus asynchronous learning will look like in each class. And maybe that if they even have a sort of disclosure that they sign, particularly when their student goes in quarantine, so that they understand what the policy or the expectation is supposed to look like. Because I think one of the communications I've had consistently come back from parents is, I'm super frustrated. I don't know what to do. But they don't know what the expectation is. So they don't even know how to address it with the teacher or with the principal. And so that's part of the question mark is part of the frustration that's driving this. So if they understand what the set expectation is, and if they, okay, I'm seeing that this isn't quite working, or it might be over the top or whatever, then they actually have a point of reference with which to approach the teacher, if that makes sense.
Okay, any other comments or questions? I would just like to add my appreciation as well. I really feel like this gives clear understanding of what the expectations are, as well as the consistency. And I like the fact that that every day a student will have opportunity to connect with their teacher, whether it's whatever the reason they're participating online. And I appreciate that you've recognized that there are the different settings which a student will participate online, and we have actually thousands of high school students that have now had that opportunity to participate in school-wide virtual, as well as many hundreds of them as individual quarantines and the hybrid. So we've gone around the block a few times in a very short amount of time, and I appreciate that you're recognizing that it really is about the student's experience, and that's what we need to focus on to keep their experience and their learning progressing and moving ahead. I really appreciate this, the help desk idea and the extra personnel, the support personnel. Do you know about when that will be in place?
Yeah, we want to make those transfers or hires as soon as we can.
So in a week or two, is that?
Yes.
Yeah, the help desk, we've written the job description, and I know that we have, is it posted? But we will, and hopefully get that interviews going for any qualified candidates. So that one's coming as soon as we can. We're ready to go.
Okay. So when I, as a board member, receive an email from a parent that has some questions about it or has some specific concerns because their experience maybe is not lining up with what you've outlined here as expectations, then that's a resource then that I could send those parents to get assistance. Okay, that's great. Oh, it looks like Mrs. Schill has an additional question.
So I forgot. I wanted to ask, what is the additional cost of the support personnel that we're going to add? And I mean, are we fine with the budget with that amount? Just kind of curious on the financial part of that proposal.
You remember the slide that there was like an XXX? So I don't know. Have we looked into that?
Yes. So it's not going to be quite as expensive. We do believe we have some resources to shift into place, but we need to go through the process of discussing those people and making sure they're the right fit. So we will have to do some hires, but I'm not sure how many yet. One for sure will be the Canvas support. That'll have to be somebody new, I believe.
Okay. Do we have extra FTE, or have we used all the FTE?
Come on up, bud.
Well, this is the part where, again, I don't sleep. So But what we'll have to do is just shift resources around the best we can, using everything we can. But we know this is a high priority with the district right now. So we have to make it work. And so we have no choice. But we think we draw on several things with the CARES Act. We also have attrition through positions and whatnot, but our FTE is pretty much exhausted on the teacher side, but we'll have to look at drawing from every bucket we can, but we know this is a top priority because it has to happen.
Okay. I trust you, Leon, to figure it out. Thanks.
One other question that I had too, and it's back to this idea of more electives, opportunities for electives, and I appreciate how you've described the process that you'll go through with that. For that, are you looking at maybe offering like district-wide? I'm thinking of middle schools, right? So it would be like a district-wide enrichment class, meaning middle school students from multiple middle schools could sign up for, Spanish 1 or for some sort of an art class or something that could be, so that it's not necessarily directly tied to their school for at least this time being.
Yeah, as we looked, I think the first step is which electives are mandatory. I think we would say, at the state level, I would push for health as one of our first ones we look at. But again, being fiscally responsible, looking at electives and the number of students who are going to take those electives, if there's not enough at one school, I think we would need to pull together, similar to what we've done with our elementary full-time online teachers. If that makes sense, and I think if it meets the threshold of an FTE or partial, I think that's what we would need to do to provide elective opportunities.
Great, thank you. Any other comments? Questions? Okay, well, that concludes this update. And again, thank you so much I know, I can't even imagine the hours that you've spent on this, but thank you for listening and for making these adjustments. And we look forward to hearing reports of how it's going. And all right, so that concludes our items under new business. Next, we'll have our staff comments. We'll ask Superintendent Robbins and then Business Administrator Leon Wilcox.
Okay, thank you, President Tingy. I'll just take a few minutes to close with my appreciation to you as board members for your support and confidence. It's very humbling to be surrounded by such great teammates, and we can do so much. We can help guide, put in place, lead, coach, and support. But at the end of the day, our parents, our students, our teachers, I've heard Mont say this many times, that the magic is in the classroom. And as you mentioned, Nancy, the support for our student success is what it's all about. And Canyons School District from day one has had a vision for student success. And, it's just awesome to see this evolution and our ability to adapt and change with that. And I want to comment and just tell those that are listening in the public and our parents and our students and everybody out there, teachers included, that we do, and for me especially, each and every email makes a difference and weighs heavily on me. I don't know how to even begin to explain, as you all receive and understand this, the dynamic ideas, thoughts, positions, circumstances that people are in when it comes to this this mean virus and situation. And so in all of that, I think our efforts at every level are really with the intent to balance our students' academic, social, emotional, physical well-being. And that's very difficult to do because we receive emails, on one side where parents or students may be very fearful of COVID and want school completely closed for fear, which is a very valid point taken. And then on the other side, you have parents and students that are going through social and emotional trauma, and all the way from depression to all of these issues that they're experiencing because they're not in in-person instruction. And so trying to find that sweet spot that meets the needs of everyone is difficult. But I just want everyone out there to know, including our parents and our students, our teachers and staff, that each one of their concerns matter. And when I hear from them personally or in an email, I take pause to think about just how critical their situation is as it weighs in on this decision. And I'll close with this. I'm on a very positive note. I'm absolutely thrilled and proud of everyone's efforts to get our schools back into session. And Monday, all schools in Canyon School District that are in person were open for business. And that says a lot, right? It's the end of October, and hopefully, knock on wood and praying that we've peaked early and maybe we're on the decline with the number of cases. We'll keep our fingers crossed and continue to watch this. But the real efforts here by everyone in our communities, it goes to show you that people can come together. They can recognize an issue and come together to do something about it. And as of yesterday, if anyone's had a chance to look at our dashboard, 11 or 12 of our elementaries are still at 0 cases. 17 of our elementaries are below 5 cases, and all of those schools have remained that way from the beginning of school. Our middle schools are all under 5 cases, including Draper Park, which is just an excellent sign. Our highest case total is Indian Hills at 7, and our high schools are all under, I believe, 8 or 9 is the highest at this point. And so I just want to thank everyone for all of their efforts. To me, that signals that for now, the situation has stabilized and we're doing the right things. We're making the hard choices and the sacrifices necessary. We need to keep that up. As we're watching case counts in our state increase, and even in our own district, in some of our community zip codes, there's been slight increases in community spread. We know that has an impact on the number of cases that occurs in our schools. And so I just want to remind our parents and our patrons in our community to keep the vigilance up. We cannot let up. If we want school to remain open as of Monday like it is, then we need everybody to make sure that you're wearing your masks, that you're doing the best that you can to distance, and that you're practicing hand hygiene. I mean, those are the keys, whether it's in school or out of school, in gatherings. And so I just want to, take a moment to pat everyone on the back just a bit, and smell the roses a little bit on the way, because I think opening school in person on Monday is a victory and something that should be celebrated. But we're in the first quarter, and we still have 3 long quarters to go in this game. And I just, want to remind everybody, let's continue to get those wins, but we can only do it together. It's not a matter of us or you or we or them. This is about all of us in this together if we want to continue to keep school going and teaching and learning happening at the level that we know it needs to. So I'll close with that. I'm very, very grateful to everyone in the district and in our communities for making those efforts. I mean, I think about often, our custodians, our lunch workers, our bus drivers, our staff. I mean, all of these people each and every day get up hand in hand with parents to make the very best efforts they can to ensure that their kids are successful. And, if that's something that can't unite us in this country, then I don't know what will. But our children certainly is something that we ought to come together for. So, any last questions about that? I'll close with that. But I just appreciate the board's support and the administrative team and everybody and staff behind me for all of their efforts, and we will continue to get through this thing together. So thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent. We appreciate all of your great work and leadership. Mr. Wilcox.
Yeah, and I do this usually the second meeting in October, last several years, and I put this in your binder, and I can post this on my comments. I'll send you post this for Mont and Amber. It's based on our October 1 counts. In the news yesterday, there was an article on the state's declining enrollment of students. I heard a news article on the radio as I was driving in today. The state itself is down some 9,000 students from what they expected. That's all charters and districts combined. We are no exception to that. Before you, I have what our enrollments are, again, as of October 1st. I did a 5-year look back as well. We are down, our total count is 33,488 students. That is about a 700 student decrease from last year. That is a very big deal. Make no mistake about it. We have something very concerning. That is basically a 2% drop in enrollment. Other districts are along those same lines with us. The biggest thing in the state, and this was brought up yesterday quite a bit at the legislative level at the public ed appropriations, most districts are down around that same percentage rate. Two of the biggest things are, one, and it is for us, is kindergartners have not come. Parents have elected to keep their kindergartners home this year. So for us, we're down about 140 kindergartners than we expected. The other thing would be homeschoolers or parents are elected to homeschool their children. We're up about 115 homeschool affidavits. So between those two, we're about 700 down. That accounts for about 250 of those. So the other big concern, and this was brought up at the state level, is where are those other students? For us, it's around that 450. We know many have gone to an online environment, probably an online charter. We know that. We don't have access to all that data. That's part of the problem. But we also know some kids are still just have not come to school, and that was brought up yesterday. So that's a big concern to us. The funding level, there's a hold harmless provision in the state. We all know our funding is based on enrollment. There's a hold harmless provision for this year, but it could impact us next year. But again, most districts dealing with that, and that was discussed at the legislature yesterday, and how they can come up with some solutions with that. So we will keep you posted on that as the next year rolls forward. On the back page, you can see by grade where we were reduced, and also students advancing from one grade, so kindergartens last year into first grade this year. You can see our numbers there, or from first grade last year into second grade this year. So if you have any questions on that, let me know as you look that over. And the other thing, Dr. Robbins just highlighted on that, we're really excited that we're expecting our 2,700 Chromebooks to be here on Thursday. So a big thank you to our purchasing people, Gary Hansen and Scott McCombs, who have been twisting some arms with our vendors. So we're excited to get those here and then out to the schools. So that's all I have for today. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. That is, thank you for giving us that detail on the enrollment. Okay, board member comments. We'll start with Mr. Iverson.
Great, thank you. Just a couple quick comments. I've been to a couple band competitions, a couple soccer games. It's great to be able to go see those things as a parent, as a board member. It's great that kids, even in my opinion, even if they were unable to go to school for learning, they were able to participate in the activities that are important to them. Like Amanda, our kids have been in 4 weeks of quarantine. Between 2 weeks, the whole school was virtual, and 2 weeks that our family was quarantined. They were, I was really grateful, and I think they were as well, to go back to school yesterday. Lastly, an editorial comment on where we are right now as a country, very quickly. In my opinion, this country has been great for 244 years, especially because of the principles found in the founding documents of the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, etc. The country's far from perfect. Our people, all of us as Americans, we're far from perfect. There's still too much inequality, too much lack of tolerance, lack of respect and love for everyone, regardless of their race, religion, sexual orientation, opinions, beliefs, etc. I do think it is an amazing place, though, and I have faith in America and her people, regardless of the outcome of the elections in 2 weeks. I have strong faith that America will continue and continue to be stronger. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Wrigley.
Sure, thank you. And to lay in, this 705, it'll be interesting to see how many come back when we actually open up without all the COVID issues. I think a lot have left just because they're looking for another alternative that it's maybe a little bit better developed in regards to online, but they probably still want to be where we're at. So it'll be interesting to see how that swing goes back and forth. I already said thank you but I just want to reinforce that again. I don't know about all of you guys, but I opened my ballot up this weekend and it had Proposition G on there. Is it G, which is the tax addition to that? And I read that and I said, it says, give more money out of the tax to people with disabilities. Didn't say what it is. I would encourage people to try to figure out more what that says, because that's not exactly what it says. And I work within the field of disabilities, and the disability group coalition has actually come out against it because they're concerned that they're going to be competing with education, and they'll probably lose. Anyway, before you vote on that, I just encourage you to try to figure out somewhere in this process, even maybe go online, what that proposition actually says, so you could have an educated thing. Because I looked at it and my wife looked at it, oh yeah, give more money to people with disabilities. That sounds good, but that's not really what it's about. So I'd encourage you to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Oakes?
I know we've been going for a while, and I just want to reiterate my thanks again to all of you. I have had the opportunity to watch a lot of things virtually for kids this week. I have never been so grateful to see all 5 of my kids go back to school as I was yesterday. It's a miracle. I don't know. Every day is a gift that they are in front of their teachers and with their peers. Just the things that we have taken for granted for so many years. I've had, all of our kids' birthdays tend to fall in the autumn and winter, and I've had a couple kids' birthdays that have had to forego parties and do some other things because of COVID. And on Saturday, we went to go celebrate one of them and go out to brunch together, and we were going to go to a restaurant that was kind of crowded, and I just said, no way. I cannot jeopardize all of my kids being able to go to school, because if one of us had to quarantine, I thought I might die. So it's funny what a huge motivator it really is. And that's independent of any of my role as a board member. As a parent, I had to keep them as healthy as possible because they need to be in class. So I want to reiterate what Rick had to say. I agree with him. I'm so grateful for everyone's efforts. There's so many people involved trying to keep people healthy and trying to make this work. regardless of whatever your perspective or opinion is on it, just trying to move the ship forward and work as a community with all sorts of different perspectives and opinions. I appreciate what Chad had to say with regard to our democracy. I feel the same way every time I take out my ballot and I vote. I feel like it's a sacred opportunity. We're really blessed to live in a nation like this one, even though, like he said, we're far from perfect. But it's a remarkable opportunity for us to be able to cast our vote or our voice and to have, just one drop in the bucket of a whole lot of different voices to make a difference. And I've been trying to talk to my kids about that. I think this year has been a unique year as far as politics are concerned. And COVID is not without its own politics, but it has certainly made me think on a deeper level about some of those privileges and opportunities. And I am grateful for my board members. I want to express my gratitude to each of you for your professionalism, for your hard work and your effort that you put forward for your communities on a regular basis. This is not without a lot of time, effort, and energy and sacrifice of those different things as a position. And I just want to recognize that I appreciate the effort that you put into it and for your willingness to work with each other and to do it in a professional way and with respect. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Millerberg?
Here we are. Okay, thank you. One request I have, and I don't know who is responsible for it. I want you to know that I look at the dashboard online almost every day. Really appreciate it. If somebody could fix that so that when you scroll down to look at the other schools, the headings would lock and stay in place. I'm not good enough to remember what all the headings are by the time I get down to the high school. And it would be really nice if somebody could fix that to lock the headings. Item number 2, kudos, shout out, whatever we want to call it, to Hillcrest High School and Corner Canyon and the Performing Arts departments. Just be aware to go to Cedar City, although it's in our backyard, so to speak, that is a national competition. It is not a state competition. And to have 2 of our schools win sweepstakes awards in their respective divisions is just unbelievable. We have expert instruction and great kids in our district. And so we just need to make sure that we appreciate the great efforts that are being put in both at the instructional level and at the performing level. Tonight's meeting, one thing that to me really stood out. I don't know if any of my other board members over the last 30 days have received any emails at all from constituents, or am I the only one? We have been inundated with emails from teachers, from parents, from students, everybody making a suggestion as to what needed to happen with online instruction, what needed to happen with keeping schools open, what needed to happen with closing schools. It's been unbelievable. And yet it's interesting. We have, in my opinion, hired some of the best educational experts in the nation to lead our school district. We have the best of the best to work with. But what I really appreciate is these experts have not done a top-down management style and told our constituents, told the population what they need to do. They have read the emails that we've received. They have listened to what the community has said. And with the presentation we saw tonight, we can see that this is driven by our community to make sure that our education is better. They are listening to what people have said. And I think one of the worst things we could do is to have people, whether they be district administrators, whether they be building administrators, or whether they be the magicians working the magic in the classroom, is to have people bust their chops like they have done and not appreciate what they've done. And so I express my appreciation to those who have made things happen and that have listened to what the people in the community have said. Chad, I think you're the one that said that it's an evolving process and that we can do better and we will do better. But I'm very impressed at how quickly this has evolved and become more in line with what our community wanted. So with that, thank you.
Thank you. And I will just add my appreciation again to all the things that have been said. And I want to specifically mention our principals as in our building leaders, as this is Thank a Principal Month, I think is what it's called. And we appreciate them so much. They manage and juggle and respond and encourage and coach and do all of these amazing things every day in our buildings. And I just appreciate the wonderful leaders that we have in our buildings, because I feel like they are in the front lines. And yes, the magic happens in the classroom, but those principals help make sure that those classrooms can be magical. And I appreciate them and appreciate my fellow board members as well. And with that, I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you. Oh, I apologize. We will reconvene. Amber? Oh, is she there? Okay, I'm sorry. I had understood that you didn't have a comment, so I apologize. Mrs. Schill?
Yeah, let me just echo some of the things that other board members have said, and also the superintendent. And I do really want to thank people, parents, teachers, everyone who sends us an email, because I know the majority of us read every single one. And they do weigh on us. Like, we don't just blow them off. They weigh on us. And we try to do our best to listen and try to make positive changes. And I also just want to thank my fellow board members. I really appreciate their dedication and just all the time they spend. And also just thank you, administration. I see you guys are super tiny in my picture. But anyway, thank you. Thanks for all your work. And I really do hope everyone had a good fall break and got a few days off of rest. And anyway, thank you so much. We will see you in a few weeks.
Okay, thank you. Now, anything else? All right, now we are adjourned. Thank you.